Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast. I'm Kamran.
And I'm Billy.
Billy, what would you say we do here?
Well, we like to dig deep into a bunch of books and shows and movies that we love.
In excruciating detail, right?
In excruciating detail. And we like to talk about things that we like about them, what they make us think, and what we learn from them. And a lot of times we're going to go off topic, but we're going to bring it back in. Basically, it is just two guys hanging out talking about their favorite stuff. And it's not meant to be a replacement for anything. It's meant to be a companion to anything that we're talking about, any shows, any movies, any books that we're talking about. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show with us.
One final note before we begin the episode. If you would like to support our show, we have a Patreon set up. You can find the link at horsefrogproductions.com. You can also email us with any feedback at contact@horsefrogproductions.com. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description. Today, we're covering The Boys, the Amazon Prime show, Season 2, Episode 1. As is tradition, before every episode of covering The Boys, we say this show is intended for a mature audience and has extreme violence and some scenes of sexual misconduct. If these topics upset you, then we do not recommend you continue listening.
When you said as is tradition, I'm thinking of the royal pudding episode of South Park, as is tradition. It's like, it's so horrific. I'm so sorry. It just broke me up too much. And I'm not going to reference South Park, so please. I'm working very hard to not reference South Park, so.
All right.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
We have a couple corrections and additions today.
I'm not sure exactly which episode in particular, but I had made a comment about the location of what I presume to be the Mr. Edgar's level, which Edgar to me is the man. I see him as the man, so I assumed he was up higher when they mentioned floor 82. I believe that it is actually lower as we start season 2 here. This first episode, it is brought up that Mr. Edgar says, I've come up to 99 or something. Something is pointed out that I was wrong about the location of the floor. So this is my correction.
Homelander goes into Mr. Edgar's office and mentions, you never come up to floor 99.
Oh, that's what it was. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that let me know this. And then in some other vague point, I am a huge Garth Ennis fanboy. And I have referred to where he's from several times. I knew he was from the UK area. And I think I may have said he's from Scotland. And if I did, and if I've offended you, Mr. Ennis, I do apologize. I'm a huge fanboy. He is, in fact, from Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I was reading his Wikipedia page because I can't remember what prompted me to go look up his background. I think I wanted to see who was publishing The Boys. And so that kind of what got me down the little rabbit hole of Garth Ennis and his history.
I didn't realize it was such an off label. I had never heard of this Dynamite brand comic. Mm-hmm. And the other interesting fact about him I read is that had how he had got to confer with one of the great grandfathers of amazing comic literature is Alan Moore, and how Alan Moore had told him to make sure and stick with creator-owned titles. That way your best work can stay. That's why he's done so well, because that's a Preacher. I've mentioned Preacher before. That was a title he owned, because Vertigo was still DC, but it was creator-owned titles. It was not canon in the universe or anything like that. So. But it also mentioned another guy. He does a lot of work with McRae, something McRae. I can't remember his first name. But McRae's they're a fantastic team. Written some hilarious stuff like Hitman and The Demon and some other stuff. And it's just absolutely hilariously bloody and just hilariously funny.
The Hitman, that's not related to the video game series, is it?
No. It's actually DC canon. It's part of the regular universe. He functions out of Gotham.
Okay.
And has several encounters with him. But there was DC, all the comics always have a major crossover event every year at some point. And it was a real, I'm not trying to be hateful to DC, but it's a terrible storyline called Bloodlines. And it actually introduced a whole slew of new entities. This aliens came and kind of tried to eat a bunch of people, and they killed and ate a bunch of humans. And some of the survivors were then given superhuman powers. and Tommy was the only good one. The hitman, he can read, he has telepathy, but it costs him excruciating headaches, and he has X-ray vision that is on all the time. Yeah, so he's his eyes look all messed up, and he's an unusual character. But like Batman kept trying to get the drop on him, and he can't. So Batman actually has to kind of help him out. It's really good. It's really funny.
Okay,
and he's hysterically funny.
Cool. I also have a correction. During our review of episode 7, Homelander was having a conversation with Madeline, and he asked her if she remembered a girl from marketing a couple of years ago. Madeline guesses Ashley and apologizes for having to fire her. I didn't realize at the time that she was guessing our favorite, Ashley Barrett, because she had just fired her. I kind of feel like a knucklehead that I didn't put that together. I'm going to play this off like I just wiped her from my memory that quickly. You know,
I understand. It's okay. We have good news for fans. We'll get into that later.
Oh, yeah. Fans of Ashley, you should be excited right now.
Yeah, that's right. Bring it. We're going to love it.
Episode 1, Season 2. We're treated to a nice little montage with Sympathy for the Devil playing in the background by the Rolling Stones.
That's a great montage.
Mm-hmm. The beautiful statue outside the command center for the 7 in the Vought Tower is being modified to remove lamplighter and add starlight. He's got a grinder. There's a lot of sparks flying everywhere. I guess it's bronze, looks like.
Yeah.
A male secretary is bringing lunch into the command room where the U.S. Department of Defense contract is in the process of being negotiated. The contract is a book, hundreds of pages. They are working through it page by page, redlining parts of the contract. The male secretary starts handing out food. Mr. Edgar, the CEO of Vought Industries, is sitting at the head of the table, making demands of the Secretary of Defense of the United States. Some highlights of the terms he wants to review. Chain of command doesn't apply to other military contractors in the field. He doesn't see why it should apply to Vought. The Secretary of Defense asks who the soups will report to in actual combat.
Is the secretary, is that SecDef? Is that better than SetDec?
100% better.
We know that it is 100% better, but I love that.
Probably 1,000% better. The SetDec is not really that prestigious of a role.
That's a real grunt. Yeah, we'll call it grunt work. Yeah. Right? So there we go. Okay.
Versus the Secretary of Defense. Mr. Edgar says, same person as always, me. It seems like you wouldn't be able to scale that very much.
Yeah.
If you're in a wartime scenario,
absolutely.
You have to have leaders on the ground too. You can't just have one single point that everything is funneled through.
I'm assuming that in all the military campaigns, you know that there's lots of leaders on the ground over there.
Yes. The chain of command is multiple levels.
Yes.
It's not just, it's like 4 people going into one, and then those 4 go into one. You know, it's kind of that.
Yeah. Just bring it through to me. Yeah.
200 soups. They all come to me. Mr. Edgar continues on, asking for a top secret Yankee White designation for Compound V.
I've heard that reference before. I don't know if that's just the most cinematically used reference. It probably is, I'm guessing.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't understand what it was, so I looked it up. There are 3 levels of clearance: confidential, secret, and top secret. There are a number of special access programs, security protocols, and nicknames in the vast military-industrial complex. Yankee White clearance is an administrative nickname for security clearances issued for specific offices serving the President and Vice President of the United States. Think of it as a special suitability designation rather than a separate security clearance. The Secretary of Defense pushes back, saying only one person okays that. Does Mr. Edgar want to stroll into the Oval Office and start barking orders? Mr. Edgar says, hell yes. Half our own heroes don't know they have Compound V in their veins. You want China finding out? I truly believe that Mr. Edgar thinks nothing of the office of the president, and he would have no issues going in there and owning that office. Like, he would be running the show when he was in there. He would be telling the president what's up.
Yeah, he is definitely power hungry.
Yeah. And Mr. Edgar, he is an incredibly formidable individual. We're going to see a lot of him this season, and it is really impressive the way he handles himself. He's nothing like kind of the soft politicians that you have in office.
Mr. Edgar is again played by Giancarlo Esposito, the guy that played Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. So yeah, he's got that super gangster swagger to him, even more so having the power of a pharmaceutical company behind him.
Yeah, he just has this really statesman-like face.
Yes, he does.
Something about the way he looks. He's just looks very respectable.
Yeah, he's magnificent. Absolutely magnificent.
Now that they have their foot in the door, the government is absolutely at Vought's mercy. Vought can basically control the entire scenario with these soup terrorists all over the place, right? So that's fun. The Secretary of Defense points out a change in the contract. Best efforts to limit collateral damage.
Right.
He says, we'd prefer stronger wording. Mr. Edgar tells him that standard language for our New York contract, LA, Chicago. The Secretary of Defense asks, exactly what casualty allowance are we looking at here? Mr. Edgar leans forward and says, officially, 0, of course, but cone of silence, 34%. The Secretary of Defense gets quite the look on his face when these numbers are stated. And you had referenced this in one of our previous episodes, the casualty rate of the soups.
Yeah, it was 60% in the comics. And so, yeah, because what it said, the way that I understand that is that the police and the tactical style units, and I guess anybody that does this kind of, I mean, that's the only people I can think of offhand. I don't know if there's more units that do this kind of stuff, but they're allowed a 20% casualty rate. So, if you got a group of 10 hostages and they lose 2, that's seen as acceptable. And the soups in that same scenario are going to lose 6 out of those 10. So that's pretty horrifying. And I think that maybe the soups, they should all be training like we saw Maeve training in that first season with those guys with the baseball bats, so that when you go into a scenario like that, you don't take out the wall when you hit somebody. That's what I'm assuming all the training is for. If they follow training protocols, which I'm assuming no one trains Homelander.
Yeah, we've never seen him train.
Nope.
As these negotiations are happening, we are taken to a compound in Syria. Black Noir is working his way through the compound, methodically killing everyone. We see a woman. She's walking around holding an empty glass. She walks up and is suddenly surprised by him standing in front of her. He slashes her throat, and the glass fills up with blood. She drops the glass, and he catches it before it hits the ground. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
He then gently puts it down so it doesn't break. Outside the building, but still inside the compound, 2 guards are standing there, one of them smoking. They hear a noise. It sounds like someone dropping to the ground. One of them turns to look. We hear a slashing sound, and the one that was smoking has had his throat slit. The other guard turns and sees nothing. He's frantically looking around. Black Noir comes up on him, knocks him to the ground, grabs both his upper and lower jaw, and rips his head open. You referenced this in our first episode.
Yeah.
I believe you said he's zipped his head open, something along those lines.
Unzipped his head or something like that.
Unzipped his head, yeah. And you noted how strong you would have to be to perform this action.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be easy to make a head go the way it ain't supposed to go. It's like turning him inside out almost.
Yeah.
It's disgusting and hilarious at the same time.
And this is certainly one of the differentiating factors between Black Noir and Batman. Do you think he's more like Deadpool without the jokes, or maybe somebody like Deathstroke from DC?
Yeah, that could very well be. I hadn't thought about him like that, but that, when you think about it, that's be more, like, I could see that more of just a mercenary style. Killing people doesn't really matter so much to that mercenary attitude so much. At least that's, what we're told. But yeah, I could see him being that way. Very interesting character. I'm still curious. I'm curious to know what really goes on.
Yes, we'll talk a little bit more about him. Naqib is in a room in the compound with someone else. They have merch for Naqib. We see a t-shirt. The two are discussing what his catchphrase should be. Naqib proposes, by the power of my holy fire. His companion says it's too wordy. They want a catchphrase that is catchy. Do you think this guy's his social media manager?
Yeah. Is he like is that what Ashley does? Is she the social media manager, or is she more? But I always just kind of imagine maybe this guy's a combination role. They don't seem to be as organized as Vought. This is a homegrown organization here.
Yeah, I would say he's probably filling multiple roles in this organization. Yeah. Naqib then comes up with burn in truth. His social media manager says that's a good catchphrase.
It is good.
He begins to say something else, and a knife blade comes out of his chest, stabbing him through the heart. Naqib has his back turned, and when he hears this, he turns around. As the social media manager falls to the ground, Black Noir is revealed. Naqib yells, "Burn in truth." He really adopted that quickly.
Yeah. He must have really enjoyed that one, dude. It's like, you think that this is what the marketing people do in the West all day, is coming up with these slogans for these heroes? And if it is stay lit the best that Ashley could come up with? Seriously?
Yeah, probably. She'd probably run it by a focus group.
Right.
They would get feedback from a wide variety of individuals and make a determination on what the best phrase is. Now, the one that comes to mind is, "There are no secrets from me."
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah, that is at least better than stay lit, though.
Yep. Naqib then explodes. We see the walls and windows blown out on the building. Black Noir takes the explosion directly to his face. Naqib is looking around after the explosion and realizes he didn't kill Black Noir. Black Noir's face mask is half burned off and parts of his armor are missing. We don't see any indication that he is in pain or that the explosion negatively affected him in any way. Again, he's an enigma. We get absolutely nothing from him.
That's right.
And one thing that I found interesting about Black Noir is if you log into Amazon Prime on a computer and browse to the boys, they have the stats for all the boys and all the soups in the 7.
That sounds cool.
I found it interesting that Black Noir has his height and his weight as variable. Everybody else has a defined, like Homelander's 5'11".
Right.
Butcher and Huey are 6'1". And why would your weight and your height be variable?
Yeah.
I'm beginning to have some suspicions about what he is based on that alone.
Yeah.
But I don't want to dig into it too much because I kind of want to see where the show goes with it.
I'm kind of curious, do you have any idea of what you think he is?
I think he's probably some type of cloning program, and they just keep replacing him with other clones or something like that.
That's really good idea. That's awesome. Back to the explosion and him taking that. Yeah, I love seeing him take that explosion, not even saying one. He doesn't say word one. He just takes it right in the face.
He does.
It's amazing. And that explosion just wiped out. That's a big chunk of floor it wiped out. And at the end of that first season, Naqib lets out a blast that may have been more damaging in that other. So, yeah, this guy was pretty tough.
Yeah. At that range, to have that shockwave pass through you, and you're still standing with no reaction, not even stunned or anything, he's still 100% on target.
Yeah, he's unfazed completely by it.
The camera zooms in on Naqib's face. Then the lighting and background change, and we see that Black Noir has decapitated him. He's carrying his head out of the house. As he passes through a bedroom, he finds a child in there. They stare at each other for an uncomfortable moment. Black Noir makes a very quick, aggressive motion, reaching for the bread. The kid kind of starts a little bit. The kid gets scared only to see that Black Noir has picked up a stuffed animal. It's a bunny. Black Noir does a little puppet show with the toy, and then at the end he makes it bow, and then he puts it down on the edge of the bed in a sitting position. He then leaves. Why?
I have no idea why. I love Black Noir, and I love these really trippy little insights you get into this guy. And sometimes there's these weird things that he appears childlike or maybe the victim of. So I got no idea, but I think so much of that is me adding feelings to him because you can see nothing because his face is a black flat mask. And so you have no idea what this guy is. He's an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
Right. All you have is the tilt of a head.
That's right.
At best. Yeah. That's the only thing we've seen from him.
That and him making matcha.
I did see something about him being trained by a sensei, so he must have some Japanese training.
There you go. Oh, that's even that put that together with the sword. Wow, that's good training.
It might be more ninja. He's got so many knives and he's throwing them, as opposed to a samurai.
Right. Okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Homelander is delivering the eulogy at Translucent's funeral. He starts by saying, "Today, I can tell the American people that Black Noir has conducted an operation killing the super terrorist known as Naqib." The crowd applauds. One quick note here. The camera angle they chose for him in this scene was not that flattering. It's a little lower than his head looking up at him, and his hair doesn't look as perfect as it normally does when we see him.
It does not, and you're right, it is not flattering. And one thing that I always enjoy, especially I'm hoping that this show will be on the air for a long time, because when you see a show grow, you get to see sometimes how from season to season the changes that go on. There's always these different feels, different lightings. They explore different things as we go on, and it's absolutely fascinating. But it's not a flattering angle, but it's a powerful angle.
I agree. Homelander holds up a finger to stop the applause. He tells the crowd that doesn't mean sacrifices won't still be made. The proof of that, sadly, lies before us. For today, we mourn a fallen member of the Seven, Translucent. There is a display case on the stage with Homelander, and it's empty.
Is it really? Maybe they cleaned off the bits and just kind of hucked them in there in a pile. Would we know?
They'd have to glue them together because you'd be able to see the insides, I would think.
Oh, that's
right?
Nasty. That is too nasty. Okay, you're right. That is. Okay, you're probably right. It's probably empty.
And they couldn't sew them together. You'd see all the thread. But you know what? You make a strong case, I'll allow it.
Oh my gosh, that's a horrific. Okay, I appreciate that.
Homelander continues, murdered in cold blood by the cartel's super terrorist El Diablo. I tried to find info on El Diablo, but only came up with the guy from the Suicide Squad. He was kind of a vato. He had face tattoos, and he would blow fire out of his mouth or something like that.
Right.
And The Boys isn't a DC property, so I don't think there's a connection. Maybe it's a Mexican fighting chicken.
Does this give you flashbacks from Eastbound and Down with the fighting chicken, Big Red? I think that was that rooster's name.
Well, I was specifically referring to, I believe it was Talladega Nights. They mentioned El Diablo I think it was Will Ferrell said El Diablo sounds like a Mexican fighting chicken.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
But your mention of Eastbound and Down reminds me of the scene. Okay, so we were talking about music that is tied to a scene in a powerful manner.
Okay, wait, I know where you're going to go with this.
And there was that scene with what's his name in Eastbound and Down riding the jet ski.
That's what it is.
And Black Betty was playing. And I will never hear that song again without thinking of Eastbound and Down.
Oh, I know it, dude. That is permanently.
It's like the perfect trash song for what he's doing at that moment.
Oh, he's so awful. It's so. Do you know that's on HBO Max?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I tried to rewatch it. It's so brutal. It's so hard to take because he's so harsh and so hateful.
He's like Butcher on steroids, because at least Butcher is good at something. Right. Kenny Powers may have been good at something in the past, but he's not good at anything anymore.
You're right. He is only good at being a piece of trash.
Yeah. Homelander says, before he left, Translucent said to me, almost as if he knew something was going to happen, he said, hey, Homelander, tell my son Maverick that I love him. We see Maverick sitting in the front row at the ceremony. He looks down, not meeting Homelander's gaze. Homelander goes on, and he also said, you find those super terrorists. Well, super villains is really the only term. But he said, you find them, Homelander, and you stop them. So I say to you, Maverick, and to all the sons and daughters of this great nation, I will stop them. I will save you. He squeezes his hands into fists, and we get that nice leather creaking sound we mentioned during season 1.
I love those little details. It's that kind of stuff that really sells things sometimes, and I wish I could explain why it sells things to me sometimes. I have no explanation other than it does to me.
Maybe it is because the absence of it would be less close to real life.
Probably so.
Does that?
I think so.
Kind of ring true?
I think it does. I think that rings very true.
Okay. Homelander says, I'll do it for you. He puts his hand on his heart and says, for America? He puts his other hand on the casket with nothing, but maybe something in it. He takes a moment, showing some emotion. Then he says, and for a dear, dear old friend. Goodbye, brother, and thank you.
Mm.
The crowd applauds. The lights go out. Then a spotlight lights up Starlight, who sings a song for Translucent. She is in her feminist attire and has big hair going on.
Big.
Some of these lyrics: we're defended by our heroes. He stood among the best, protecting us from evil. You rose above the rest. And though we could see through you, it seems we hardly knew you.
Oh my goodness.
We confess, thanks to all you've done, we've all been blessed.
Though we can see right through you. Oh my goodness.
That's
Oh
that's why I had
gosh,
to
that's
put it
dreadful.
down. I had to do it.
That is disgusting. I love it.
I was like, I'm not gonna write all these lyrics. I was like, this is too funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
She holds her hand up and lights it up with her powers as she sings, "But our heroes never die." In the background, there is a picture of Translucent's mom holding an invisible baby in a onesie. Can you imagine what a disaster it would be trying to raise an invisible child?
I'm assuming, let's just say, that'd be a very challenging way to raise a kid, because I know it's hard enough when you can see them. So I can imagine how bad it is when you can't see them. If they got out of if they managed to get out of that diaper or something like that, you better hope they're wearing socks.
Yeah, I guess the only advantage you'd have is if they were covered in spaghetti sauce or something, you'd be able to see them.
Let's just hope it's only spaghetti sauce.
One time, my daughter, she must have been, I think she might have been a little over a year. She got the peanut butter jar out of the fridge and was sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor. She was covered in peanut butter. She's eating peanut butter.
That is awesome.
So maybe that's your only saving grace, is the kid's always going to be sticky and covered in something, and that'll allow you to find it.
Right.
But outside of that, they get a little bit older. They're having a tantrum. You're not going to be able to find them.
Do you have the other, like, the problem I wonder is, like, have you ever seen John Carpenter's Memoirs of an Invisible Man with Chevy Chase?
I have not.
Well, he has to make sure that he eats, if he wants to remain unseen, he also has to eat like clear broths and fluids like that, and make sure to not eat heavy meals if you don't want to be seen for a little bit. So I think you can imagine where I'm going with this, and how you that can be pretty disgusting. So maybe you can hopefully you can see your kids' insides, I guess. I got no idea.
The Deep is in a bar. The Deep is in a bar drowning his sorrows. He's on his 6th mixed drink. The Vought News Channel is showing the ceremony on the TV. The TV is cycling through a bunch of pictures, and the Deep sees one where they cropped him out, his shoulders left in it. Side note, on the TV, the song "You'll Never Truly Vanish" is now streaming on #Vaughtify.
Wow. All right.
He exclaims, "Hey, that's my shoulder." The bartender says, "What?" The Deep says, "Right there. That's my shoulder. They cut me from the picture. They can't just cut me from the picture. They can't cut me out." He gets a little rowdy, knocking some stuff off the bar. The bartender says, "Okay, that's enough. Time to go." The Deep tells the bartender, "Just get me another lava flow, please." That would make drink number 7.
Wow.
I did not know what a lava flow was, so I looked it up. It is made of light rum, coconut rum, strawberries, pineapple juice, coconut cream, banana, crushed ice, and it has a pineapple wedge as a garnish. It's basically a strawberry daiquiri and a pina colada mixed together in a glass. So it's kind of like a swirl of red and white.
Okay.
It sounds absolutely delicious.
It sounds delightful. Absolutely. And I'm not much of a drink. I'm not much of a coconut guy, but that sounds magnificent.
Yeah, I love coconut. I also tend to not drink very much or very often, but I do like pina coladas. So periodically I will have them.
All right.
I remember when I went to Nigeria, while we were waiting for our flight, the first alcoholic beverage I had in, I want to say it was over a month, was a pina colada. It felt really good. So it was very tasty.
So did you feel like walking in the rain as well?
No.
Sorry.
I did not. The bartender reiterates that it's time to go, or he's calling TMZ. Back outside the funeral ceremony, they're actually at a Samaritan's Embrace location. There are vendor tables set up. They're selling translucent memorabilia. One shirt says, "Out of sight, never out of mind." And I was wondering, is this the bootleg merch that Translucent was complaining about?
I completely forgot about him grousing about that bootlegging, or that was like episode 1, I think, of season 1. But but that's a good catch, and but I think it's probably so. It's just so we can enjoy all of that delicious irony.
It is delicious. There are also wall decorations with similar visuals on them. They have bagpipes playing in the background, though I'm not sure why they have bagpipes unless it's just kind of the thing they do with police officers and
Yes,
firemen, because Translucent, they showed a picture of him with a yarmulke on. So I
yes.
don't think that's a particularly Scottish thing.
I'm like you. I just always associate it with funerary rites.
Okay.
Always playing Amazing Grace.
Yeah. There is a mound of flowers that Translucent lovers have created in his honor. There are candles lined up in front of the flowers. Someone is holding a sign that says, "You are my hero." Hashtag RIP Translucent. Another sign reads, "We are blind without you." Homelander and Starlight walk out of the ceremony inside the building and out into the crowd. The crowd is clapping for them. Homelander is thanking people, telling them it's good to see them. He gives someone a hug. The man is sobbing. And this is like a man in his 40s,
Yeah.
late 40s maybe, and he's sobbing.
Yeah, weeping.
Yes, weeping. Homelander holds out his hand, and Starlight takes it. The crowd cheers. A reporter named David walks up to them and greets them. David asks how everyone is holding up in the tower. Homelander tells him it's hard, really hard. It comes in waves. Starlight says that Homelander has really been their rock. He sat them down and he said, "We're more than just a team. We're a family, and we need to pull together like one." Homelander says, "Aw, Starlight, thank you for saying that." She says, "Thank you, really. I don't know where we would be without you."
Yeah, I'm sure this is all scripted. They play it marvelously so.
Yeah, you think it's scripted, or Homelander's just so trained at this point that he can just kind of ad lib whenever he needs to?
He can probably ad lib it whenever he wants to. She's still relatively new at this, so she may have required a script. He probably just wings it as he goes, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Homelander looks at David and says, "Isn't she the best?" and puts his arm around her, giving her a hug. We see that Huey is watching this interview on his phone. He stops the video. We can hear hip-hop music playing in the background. It's kind of muffled coming through the wall.
Yeah.
He's looking at the still image of Starlight on his phone, and he appears to be going emo.
Come on, cut that fella a break, man. Come on. He's apparently not living in the most luxurious conditions here.
Right. And we see that as he sits up. We can hear what sounds like a jackhammer from workers on the street outside. He appears to be in a basement below street level. He's sleeping on a cot in what appears to be a janitor's closet. There's a mop bucket in there. There's one of those big sinks that you dump the mop water into.
Yeah.
Pressure by Billy Joel starts playing. I actually heard him play this song live last year.
Oh.
They had him playing at the Formula One race in Austin, Texas. The live version sounds quite a bit different than this version, but he is in his 70s now, I want to say.
Yeah, but
you kind of expect it to be a little bit different over time.
It is, and this is an era of Joel I'm not a huge fan of. I like the stuff I liked was from his earlier stuff, like when they played that the Big Shot. That kind of era is a little bit different era, and I dig that more upbeat, hard rocking kind of stuff. And that was a different band from that era. And as you say, when people get older, they do sound old. People's voices do age and they do change.
Mm-hmm. One thing that was interesting is I looked up an old live performance versus the new one. And in the old one, he plays the piano in both of them. But in the old one, he was playing a synthesizer. And he was the one that was playing all the synthesizer portions of the song. And in the new one, he's playing a grand piano.
Right.
And somebody else is playing the synthesizer portion. So he's adding in stuff from the grand piano now.
Yeah.
Either way, I have a confession to make. I'm not the biggest Billy Joel fan. I kind of get him, Billy Idol, and Bruce Springsteen mixed up somehow. I don't know if it's just because their names all start with B.
That
I
could be.
probably would recognize very specific songs by all three of them, but they're all from the same era.
They
kind
are.
of,
They
right?
are. They are. They're all 80s. Yeah, it's 80s stuff. Yeah.
Confession again, I had never heard this song before I heard it at that concert.
Okay.
And then I thought it was an odd coincidence that they were playing it in the show. I think it's fitting in this show because the lyrics actually make sense in context of what's happening in the show.
They do. They make great sense in context.
This music playing starts another montage where Huey is getting dressed and Starlight is switching out of her outfit into her incognito outfit. As Starlight is changing, we see her big hair is actually a wig. Color me shocked. I thought it was her real hair.
I did too.
After they both are done getting dressed, they both look at themselves in the mirror. Is it me or do neither of them really look particularly happy with themselves?
Yeah, they look like they're just kind of, at this point, just going through the motions, just existing, not really happy.
Mm-hmm. Starlight stops by a room where A-Train is on a hospital bed hooked up to a ventilator. We see Huey walking through a basement. There's graffiti on the wall. People are weighing out drugs and putting them in shoe boxes for A-Train shoes. In the basement, Kamiko is sitting on a couch using a kindergarten workbook to learn how to write English. She's on the letter B. Huey tells her it looks good, and she gives him a smile.
I like seeing this woman smile now that she's learning, now that she's kind of becoming part of that group.
It's good to see her happy.
It is. It very much is.
When she smiles, she there's a little bit of normalcy.
Yes. Yep. Thank you for saying normalcy and not normality like the rest of these plebes.
Frenchie is counting a stack of cash. Cherie is there with him, which is interesting.
It is.
Because I wonder how that plays out between Kamiko and Cherie being in the same room together.
I was wondering the same thing.
Because Frenchie is, he's got that interest in Kamiko. I don't know if it goes that direction.
I thought it did go that direction.
There are kind of the implications of the shark mating rituals or whatever of Shark Week out on the background.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know what's happened between season 2 and season 1. So,
MM is pulling a bullet out of the shoulder of a gangster, living up to his pro-medic skills he referred to last season. Huey sees MM as he is walking by, and he ducks his head as if trying to sneak out. The music abruptly stops, and MM says, "The you going?" Huey tells MM he's just going out to get him some hand sanitizer. MM gives him a long look, then says, "Get the with aloe and come right back."
And I love that long look, dude. That is a long look.
That's like the look of a parent looking at a teenager in suspicion.
It's like, I don't know if I believe this.
Huey says, yeah, the aloe. It's really good. Keeps your skin smooth. Okay. The music starts again, and Huey goes up the stairs. He comes out into a room that is behind a steel mesh gate. He needs to be buzzed out by a man that is sitting at a counter. Think of a pawn shop looking place. Huey walks out through a pretty busy store. They have comic books for sale on some of the walls. As soon as he walks out the front door, Homelander flies overhead, making a noise like a jet. Huey jumps. Back to Starlight. She is walking out of the Vought Tower. She sees a huge wall of screens advertising her new show coming this fall, Citizen Starlight. The ad says, "Justice never looks so good."
It's definitely the feminist costume for sure, I'm assuming here. I of course, know the answer. I can see the posters with my own eyes. But yeah, feminist costume, yes.
Yes, she has the feminist costume on. She's laying in a prone position.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3 screens side by side, and the ad fills up all 3 of them. So to see her fully, she's got to be laying down.
Yeah, very provocative.
She looks at the ad and gets a look of distaste. Then she walks off. We see someone on a train. It's a man. He's reading the New York Post. One cover has a headline about a new speed record for Shockwave. The other has a headline about suspected killer remains at large, Billy the Butcher, ? The doors to the train open and Starlight walks in. Huey also enters the train from another door. They see each other, then find a seat where they can sit next to each other. Before greeting her, he asks her if she snapped the SIM card on her burner phone. She looks at him and says, "When was the last time you slept, Hugh?" He tells her to keep his head down and apologizes. He clarifies that he's wanted and she's kind of super famous. Again, he asks if she snapped the SIM card. He's really paranoid and nervous, isn't he?
Yeah, he's really, very paranoid. But I mean, I guess we can't blame him. I mean, look at where he's living, and I'm assuming that with the coverage we've seen and that we're starting to see that, and we'll see even deeper here, is that people are going to be looking, that they're obviously wanted.
Yeah. She assures him that she snapped the SIM card and no one followed her there, and her tracking chip doesn't work underground. They are okay. They look at each other for a moment. Then he tells her she looks good. She at first reciprocates, telling him he looks good too, then quickly backtracks when she can't make up a good enough story and tells him she's lying, apologizes, and says he looks like.
I love it.
He says he knows. She asks where the boys are living. Typical joker that he is, he tells her Club Med in Ibiza. It's been awesome. The foam parties will change your life.
What is the foam party?
I've never been to one. I may have seen a picture of one time. I think they fill a big area with foam, and people are in bathing suits.
Oh, okay.
So you imagine what goes on after that.
I think that is what you have is correct. Yes, I'm pulling up foam parties, and that is what it appears to be. I would hate having that stuff on me.
You say that.
I'm not going to follow this either. I'm just going to live it alone.
We're not going down this road. Starlight laughs and calls him an idiot. It's kind of nice to see them kind of having a little banter with all the pressure that's on both of them right now, the stress. So it's cool to see them kind of joking around with
Especially, and remember the last time he saw her is that we know of, the last time he saw her, which he must have seen her since then, is that a butcher was shooting her to give him a break to get away.
No, the last time we saw her was when she saved him and she was doing CPR on A-Train.
That's right. Okay.
They have another moment where they look at each other. He notices that their legs are touching. He gets back on track and pulls out a piece of paper from his pocket. It's a Vought employee record. She looks at it and says, "Aw, I know him." Huey seems surprised, saying, "You do?" She says, "Not for a while, but back from her Capes for Christ days." Huey asks if she's sure she can do this. She responds with a question. "I have a choice?" Huey doesn't say anything. Then he says he saw a really good picture of her at the Teen Choice Awards with someone and asks what his name is, guessing Ansel Adams.
Isn't Ansel a famous photographer, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
So sorry.
Well, from a time past, right? Wasn't that from like the 50s or 60s or something?
I think so. It had to be from a while back.
I don't know what era he was from.
You keep going. I'll fact check for it here.
She crosses her leg over the other one, so their legs are no longer touching. Huey notices this. She says his name is Alden Ehrenreich. She asks if Huey's stalking her on Instagram. He tells her no, of course not, and that she should get over herself. Then immediately comes back with, "So did the PR people put you together or what?" She tells him no, he's a nice guy. He's totally stalking her on Instagram, and he's acting completely insecure right now. This is a bad call. This is not the right path, Huey.
Well, I'm so sorry. And this is where I'm going to show my my non-understanding of social media. I do like technology, but social media is something I'm very unfamiliar with. And I don't understand how you can stalk someone on social media when people will tell you all of the excruciating minutia of everything they're doing every second of every day. How is, they're putting it out there. So people are preparing dossiers for stalkers and wondering why they're being stalked.
I will present this way.
Okay.
In the context of this conversation, they are not dating anymore.
Okay.
He is using Instagram to keep tabs on her personal life.
Copy that. Okay, I got you.
But it's not really personal because it's a public appearance. But you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, he's suspicious she's dating somebody else. That's how I'm interpreting her reaction here. Okay. And I think a lot of people, when they say you're stalking me on Instagram, it's kind of in this scenario. It also could be truly a stalker type situation where somebody sees somebody, they start digging into their profile, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay.
What I had a note here when she tells Huey that no, this guy's a nice guy. Right. I said there are no nice guys, not in this way. If a guy is showing interest in you, He's not, in air quotes, nice guy.
Right.
All right.
There's usually some ulterior motives there. I do know a couple of nice guys. I think I'm one and I think you're one. So there's at least a couple of nice guys there.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy. I would say that.
Yeah, I think so. I've become a nice.
But I'm also married, so I'm not hanging out with women.
Does that make you? Okay, well, yeah, that does take the pressure off, doesn't it?
It does. Huey says he's an actor. So Huey gets it, right?
Yeah.
Huey knows what's going on.
He does.
She fires back, he's an actor who didn't lie to my face every day.
Ow.
Huey nods and says, okay, yeah, I got it. Ouch. She apologizes to him, realizing she hurt him. She tries to say more, but Huey's stop is called, and he stands up to get off the train. She tells him to get some sleep. He says, I'll sleep when I know you're safe. We are taken to Splash Zone in Sandusky, Ohio. The Deep is on the splash pad. He's drunk. It's midday. He's ranting, and the kids around him are all freaked out. They're running away from him to their parents. He yells, you think this is fun? You think water's supposed to be fun? Try swimming in the Mariana Trench, you little idiots. Yeah, not so fun there. No, it's dark, and it's cold, and you're so alone. You're so damn alone. He starts crying. Some cops show up there to take him in. I'm having flashbacks to my first job. I was a lifeguard when I was in high school for 3 years.
Okay.
They had something like this there.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Well, I didn't realize this is, I think I've mentioned this before, that we've gone through this for both of us. This is maybe our second time going through the first 2 seasons of The Boys, but I didn't realize, he's spraying the kids with one of the built-in water guns at the facility, but he's aiming it with his pelvis like he's urinating on the kids. Do you see that? Is that
I did not pick up on that. I'll have to go back and look and see what exactly is going on.
I'm so sorry if I see that like that, but okay, there you go.
But he was actually moving it with his hips, like
yes,
okay.
Yeah, his hands are above his head.
Oh
he's
my
like,
gosh.
What? He's aiming it with his pelvis. I'm like, okay.
I mean, he's drunk, so he's probably doing something stupid, right?
Yeah.
The Deep has been taken to jail. An officer comes and unlocks the jail cell, saying, swim free, little fish, you made bail. The Deep stands up, and something is stuck to the bench coming from his butt. I want to know what is being implied here. I don't think anyone there is strong enough to have overpowered him.
No.
All we see is there's another old man in the cell. So what is this fluid? Was it there and he just sat in it, or is it coming out of his, what?
See, I don't know either. I'm like you. Is it maybe because later on, not much later on here, he apologizes to Eagle. The fella coming to get it. Eagle. Okay.
Yes.
About the restroom. Sorry about the restroom. So is this have him loss of control of himself? Has he gone to the restroom because he's a fish kind of guy and he's built differently because of the gills? Does he process things differently? I don't know.
So he's got like some mucus coming out of his gills or something?
I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm hoping it's something he said.
You're the Aquaman expert.
I'm not the Aquaman expert, sir. Just because I know a little bit about the man. Sorry, the fictional character of Aquaman does not make me an expert on anything. I just said that Aquaman is more respectable than the Deep.
Okay,
because he's at least a king.
I'll retract my statement. I apologize.
I'll thank you. I'll thank you for taking that back. I'd rather be a Superman expert, which I'm not an expert on any superhero things. I'm so far behind times.
All the stuff that mattered already happened.
Thank you. That's as far as what I think too. Yeah.
You don't want to know what's been going on the last couple of years, and we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
We're not going into it. All right.
Thank you.
The Deep walks out to find another suit. He has a Hawkeye look to him, or would Green Arrow be more appropriate?
What's the difference, man? It's the same thing.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
Hawkeye, Green Arrow, they're both the same guy. As far as I'm concerned, they're not the same universe, but it's one's Marvel, one's DC, but they're the same thing.
Okay, so when you say that, what comes to mind is you mentioned Green Arrow is a billionaire inventor guy, whereas Hawkeye is he a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in the comics, or is that just the MCU?
That's probably MCU, but I think that MCU has become officially canon, I think. So Hawkeye is actually one examples of a person that I don't necessarily think he is wealthy. And I did say inventor type, but I meant more like, you've got two types of millionaire, billionaire crime fighters. You have the tech guys like Stark, and I mentioned Blue Beetle previously, Ted Kord. From the DC universe. That's the kind of the closest approximate I can think of, even though he doesn't wear an Iron Man type suit. I think he may now. I'm not really sure. But the Hawkeye and Green Arrow, those guys, I kind of put them more in the Batman camp. Super highly trained fighters, and they're super good weapons masters. They just happen to kind of have latched onto the bow and arrow for some reason.
Okay.
But you stick a gun in these guys' hands, Hawkeye or Green Arrow, those guys are going to be just as nasty with a gun as they are with a bow and arrow.
All right. The other soup greets him and asks him if he wants a Fresca. He hands it to him. Pay attention to the carbonated water brands throughout this season. This theme is important, and we'll come back to it later in this episode.
Is it all carbonated water brands, or is it specifically Fresca? I know Fresca in particular with things that will come up in this season.
Let me get to another scene and then I will tell you.
Okay.
It's later in this episode.
Okay. And I loved Fresca. I grew up here in this. I don't know if it's, I had never heard of it in other places, but my grandmother, my dad's mama drank that stuff. And that was the only time we ever had it. And it was never particularly great, but it was the fact that you only had it when you were at your grandparents' house. So it was like real special. And it was like, so for me, I have like these like 1970-ish flashbacks because I was super young. I'd have been 4 or 5 at this point, but I have those memories of Fresca and Sherman, Texas.
Nice. My grandfather he had a cider press and he would make his own apple cider.
Okay.
He'd have it in these mason jars. So that's the drink that I tie to my grandparents.
That sounds magnificent.
Yeah, that stuff was good, man. You never had anything like this.
I bet I've not. I would love to try that.
He sold the cider press, unfortunately. It takes a ton of apples I can't imagine how much it costs to make your own apple cider. Apples are expensive, man.
Right?
Yep.
What do you think about 20 apples to make like a glass of
I'm not sure what the ratio was. I'll have to ask my mom, see if she remembers.
Okay, cool.
Yep. The Deep takes the Fresca and thanks him. He says, "Hey, I know you." The other soup smiles. The Deep continues, "Yeah, you're a Raven Wing." The other soup smile goes away. He says, "It's Eagle the Archer out of Cleveland. We met like 5 times at VotCon. I mean, no, that doesn't matter." He takes a deep breath.
I love this guy, dude. I love how he's like, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Yeah, he was about to start going on a rant. He's like, I'm going to reel it back. I've been going to therapy. I'm going to reel it back.
Right. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what we expect from the 7 by now. They don't remember or give a crap about anyone else, really, that they meet.
No, not at all.
The Deep asks if Eagle bailed him out. Eagle confirms that he did. The Deep wants to know why. Eagle tells him because even heroes need a hand once in a while.
Nice.
Then turns to leave and tells the Deep to come with him. We transition to see Seth Rogen again on a press tour for another movie, Translucent Invisible Force 3. The slogan reads, "You can't kill what you can't see."
Wow. Is that what Translucent used to run around shouting while he's fighting crime in the nude?
Yeah. So this is probably the movie that he was complaining about being bootlegged on the street before it was released. That was also in episode 1.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, it can't be much of it. Has to be in 1 or 2 because I don't think he survives past 2, does he? Episode 2. I mean.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. The channel changes, and we are treated to an absolute abomination of a reenactment of the scene between Butcher and Madeline Stillwell in her home. This is part of A Closer Look with Chris Hansen.
Can anyone say, "Take a seat," like Chris Hansen? Can they? I don't know, man.
Oh man.
Why do those guys stay when he says that? Those guys always sit down. It's like, It's
Half the time it makes me wonder if they want to be caught.
Right?
The actor in the reenactment, his butcher impersonation is so bad that it's good.
Oh, it's dreadful.
Susan begs Butcher, please, my baby needs a mother. The Butcher actor, he's rolling his eyes and he says, oi, shut your trap, you dumb bird, or else I'll bollocks ya. And then he holds up the dead man switch as he's saying this.
I think your accent is more convincing than the actors in this reenactment. Nice job.
I wasn't comfortable doing Butchers because that is a true accent. This guy, right. I know it's a bad accent, so I'm comfortable doing a bad impersonation of a bad
accent. I love it, dude. Oi, shut your trap.
So he holds up this dead man switch as he says this. She starts crying. We switch to Chris Hansen, and he's saying, but that's exactly what William Butcher did. He murdered Vought Vice President Madeline Stillwell using upwards of 30 pounds of C4.
I did read up on this because we got to talking a little bit about C4, I think, in the finale because it's prominent. So 30 pounds. So 1 pound, I had read, is enough to easily blow up a car, blow it to bits, and it can also destroy pretty thoroughly a single family house, snap a railway track, or blow up a light traffic bridge. That's 1 pound. So 30 pounds.
Yeah, 30 pounds? Jeez.
That's going to leave a little bit of a crater with it. But that is a fancy big house. So it's probably enough to do the job, but I would think it'd leave a pretty big hole.
A crater? Yeah.
Likely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking.
They show the Butcher actor get this mad look in his eyes and push the button, triggering a terribly done CGI explosion with the house.
Yeah, it's bad.
Chris Hansen continues, disgruntled perhaps over his deceased wife, a former Vought employee. And why was Madeline Stillwell's baby found safe in a yard 17 miles away? And the baby lives. Last episode 8 of season 1, I mentioned that it looked like the baby was in the house when it exploded, and Homelander had the time to save both Butcher and the baby. That's pretty impressive reaction time.
That's incredible reaction time. I always equate Homelander as the Superman type in this show. I'm wondering if he might have a touch of super speed. Also, just for some of these soups, dexterity can be high enough that it would appear to be super speed to us. But I think the sheer act of grabbing these people at the speeds he'd be going would be enough to damage them, especially when that woman is disabled by Tech Knight, grabbing her and jerking her real fast because our bodies can't take that stuff.
Right. So immediately what comes to mind, babies are fragile. Their musculature isn't designed to take jolts. And the acceleration that would have to occur for Butcher to grab the baby. So not Butcher, Homelander.
Right.
Butcher pulls the trigger. Homelander has the reaction time to get the baby, accelerate to save the baby and Butcher, and get them out of there before they're damaged by the explosion.
Yes.
That's stretching the boundaries of my suspension of disbelief.
It does.
But we'll leave it.
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
We'll allow it.
We're going to hand wave the situation. The baby lives. I'm happy the baby lives. We'll leave it at that.
As am I. As am I.
Yep. We see that the boys are watching the TV show, and Frenchie says, it is a puzzle. Where is Monsieur Charcuterie? Why hasn't he called? Huey says, who cares? Frenchie says he could be dead. Huey chuckles and says, no, he's too much of an asshole to die. shusses them because the pictures Mesmer took of Butcher, Frenchie, Huey, and are all on the screen. And Chris Hansen is asking people to call 1-888-0-CRIMES to report any information about their whereabouts. That's quite a catchy number.
Very catchy. Oh, yeah, very catchy.
I did not do my due diligence and call that number to see if they have it. I will have to do this before episode 2.
Do you want me to call it on the air while we're...
No. On the screen, MM's name is Marvin T. Milk.
Marvin.
And Frenchie is unknown. I love how Huey was right to suspect that MM's mother didn't actually name him Mother's Milk. Because Mother's Milk...
I know.
Told him, yeah, she actually named me Mother's Milk. And Huey says, did she?
And I'm like you. What's so funny when we, because for our audience, it's like we keep notes between ourselves. Like you hadn't put anything out yet, and the first note I was going to make was Marvin because I just couldn't stop laughing about Marvin. It was like that was the first thing that came to mind when I opened that thing to make notes, and it's like I don't make notes unless you make notes. I'm like Marvin. I got to remember that Marvin. He has no shame. Look at one of my favorite people of all time, so much so that I have a bust of the figure of Marv from Sin City.
Well, what do you mean shame? Like you think he might not like his own name?
He may not. Maybe he doesn't like Marvin. But I think I think of Marv from Sin City, and Marv is one of my favorite unkillable machines.
Yeah, I mean the name sounds like a normal name to me, so yeah, I don't know why someone would be.
I've never known anyone in my life named Marvin. I knew a Marlin. But not Marvin.
Personally, right? You're saying like not celebrities or musicians or anything like that?
Yes. I can't now. I'm probably the only
Marvin Gaye.
Well, Marvin Gaye, and then there's Marv Wolfman and now I'm showing my DC nerd boy stuff. He was a writer, creator, and also one executive at DC Comics at one point. But I don't know. Other than those guys, I can't think of a whole lot of people. I'm sure there's tons out there, but I just can't think of any that come to mind.
Names go in cycles.
They do. They actually do. And there's a study, that there's studies in history of names being in places if they're, to be able to show accuracy on documents. There's a study of names. So you can tell people aren't making things up at a later date by the names sometimes that they use.
This reminds me of somebody, they thought they were being slick forging a document, but they used a font in Microsoft Word that didn't exist at the time that the document was supposed to be written. I believe he used the Calibri font, and it couldn't have existed at the time that he would have originally written it. So
that's great.
You just tell the truth.
That's right.
It's the best policy. Just tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Stick with it. It may hurt at first, but it's a lot better to get it over with.
Yes, it is. Shuts off the TV in disgust. He says, "We got to get out of here now." Frenchie tells him good passports aren't cheap. He talks about selling some RPGs and smuggling in some AKs to make the money to buy them. Frenchie looks at Huey and he addresses him as Petite Huey. Where will you go?
Petite Huey.
Says Huey could just stay here with Frenchie's gangbanger friends. The Cots, they got 31 flavors of semen on them. You'll love them. Frenchie says,
"Wow.
Oh, you have a better idea? No, maybe we can stay all of us in your mother's asshole." Huey proposes maybe they could not run. Frenchie tells him he's a broken record. Huey thinks they shouldn't just give up. They should get some Compound V and take it to the New York Times and burn Vought to the ground. asks him if he has any Compound V, because sure doesn't. Huey says they could get some. Someone could help them get it. Says, who might that be? He seems very suspicious. Frenchie asks if they heard the TV. They are famous now. Butcher is even more so. Huey says, Butcher, we don't need him. Frenchie comes back with A-Team had Hannibal, Dirty Dozen, Lee Marvin, Beatles, Brian Epstein. I love it. They're great examples. The Beatles is a little bit random, but the other two seem more apt to the current situation.
It does, and I always like how I know Ennis doesn't personally write most of these. I haven't paid attention to see if he writes any of the shows, but he references a couple of movies a lot of times that are really serious guy movies, and Dirty Dozen's one of them. But Kelly's Heroes is another great guy, fun action movie.
Yes, love that movie.
Fantastic movie. He'll reference those almost inevitably in a lot of his books. It's real funny.
Who was your favorite character in Kelly's Heroes?
Well, Kelly. It's Clint Eastwood. I love Kelly. I mean, Kelly.
Yeah, he's cool, but you didn't like Donald Sutherland in that?
Dude, Sutherland's comment, there's that one line about, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're in the middle of this battle. I'm just sitting here, catching some rays, eating some cheese, drinking some wine. Sutherland is magnificent in that movie.
He's always talking about the negative waves, man.
Those negative waves. Always with the negative waves, Moriarty. Oh.
Huey maintains that they don't need Butcher. Frenchie says, okay, who's going to be our captain? You? Huey tries to get them to listen. has had enough. He stands up and says rather aggressively, shut the up. He gets eye to eye with Huey, and they stare at each other for a moment, then says, "This is over." It's interesting compared to how they came together to escape imprisonment. They're now kind of turning on each other. I guess the stress of the situation has to be getting to them. Maybe
That would be.
the walls are closing in.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of that's going on. I mean, they from what we've seen, they are, well, we know that they're in a basement on a busy street in New York City, or I'm assuming New York City, but a big city nonetheless. And it's loud, and they seem to be ones that are. I mean, look at all the stuff that these guys are doing. They're doing the drug thing, the gun running, and they're leading a difficult lifestyle to make money, and that's just to make that money. And they're just stressed out. That would be crushing. They're even on America's Most Wanted, aren't they?
Yes. Well, it was
or the equivalent.
A closer look with Chris Hansen.
Oh, right. Sorry, so sorry. Yes. Take a seat.
People have to be coming out of that basement at all hours.
Oh my, yes. Especially when you got like an on-site medic. That's probably a luxury for those fellows.
Yes. In the Vought Tower, Homelander walks into an office that is being renovated. He looks through a box and finds a picture and takes it out. It's of him and Madeline. We can see the emotions he's feeling on his face. He rubs his thumb over her face in the picture. He thinks of something and goes to a little mini fridge. The first thing I would like to point out, the fridge has some carbonated water in it. It is LaCroix, not Fresca. So earlier I said we'd come back to this. You had said, what other brands are they?
They show it prominently, so they want us, they obviously want us to see this.
This is an important theme throughout this season. It's going to help you keep things straight.
Okay.
The Deep is being bailed out by the people that have Fresca.
Right.
And in the Vought Tower, they have LaCroix.
Is this the non-cola war?
What is that?
Or there was a cola war between, when I was a kid, they always used to play up the Pepsi Coke difference. So there was cola wars, kind of. I mean, it's just advertising stuff. I mean, I'm just being facetious.
Was this when they tried to release new Coke and they had that epic disaster?
I'm still bent out of shape about that disaster. It took them decades to bounce back and have drinkable Cokes. And you still have to get, and if you want the best Cokes, you still have to get the ones that are made in Mexico.
Because they use real sugar and not high fructose corn syrup.
Yes, it's real Coca-Cola. That's a taste. That's a real taste of a real classic American Coke from Mexico.
I was watching something the other day. There is this one town in Mexico where they're drinking like 3 liters of Coke per day.
Oh my word.
The diabetes is out of control because they're having all that sugar. Super huge health problems. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a bad deal.
Yeah, they're just probably not educating them on the negative effects of it.
Yeah.
Homelander opens the freezer section and pulls out a bottle of breast milk. This is apparently Madeline's old office. He looks at it for a moment, then heats it up with his heat vision. He takes off the lid and very creepily tongues it. It's like it's so weird the way he does it.
Oh yeah.
Before he very aggressively starts gulping it down. I would like to have been a fly on the wall when they were describing to him what they wanted from him in this scene, because I mean, what he does, it's so just weird.
It's unsettling. It's really, it's very unsettling. And I hope they told him to do that, because I know that sometimes some of those wonderful things that crop up in movies sometimes are little mannerisms or things that the actor has done themselves, and they've kept it because it just conveys more sense of like it being honest, I guess. And even though that's disgusting and weird, it's very honest in a weird way. It's telling, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Maybe not honest, but telling.
Some people are method actors. They take it very seriously too, right?
Some folks get really. Remember, Val Kilmer was really.
Yes.
They said that apparently, like on Tombstone, that guy was he was Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer was just Doc Holliday at any given time.
That reminds me of Tropic Thunder, Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
I haven't seen that. I do know the character that you're talking about, Robert Downey.
He makes a comment in the movie that he doesn't break character until the commentary is done. And in the commentary for Tropic Thunder, he's still in character.
Oh, my word. That's awesome. That is too funny.
You got to see that movie, man.
Okay, I'll check it out.
There's one quote in there.
Did Ben Stiller direct that movie?
I don't know if he directed it, but he was in it.
I know he's in it.
Nick Nolte's in the movie. He is a Vietnam veteran that allegedly the movie that they're supposed to be filming is based off of his experiences in Vietnam.
Okay.
Danny McBride, going back to Eastbound and Down, we're going to tie these two together. He is the pyrotechnics expert on set. And Nick Nolte's standing somewhere looking out over the jungle, and Danny McBride comes up to him, comments on the gun that is in his holster at his hip. Nick Nolte has the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Danny McBride asks what it is. And Nick Nolte very gruffly says, I don't know what it's called. I just know the sound it makes when it takes a man's life.
Oh my goodness.
So that's one of the great lines from that movie.
Oh my word. Well, I did look it up. It is Ben Stiller who did direct it. So.
Okay.
Because I love Cable Guy. Cable Guy is one of the greatest bizarre comedies I've ever seen, I think. I just love that movie.
The other amazing aspect of that movie is Tom Cruise is in it. He plays a Hollywood director.
Now, I've seen that weird bit. Yes, I've seen that guy, that character.
And they give him like forearm and hand prosthetics, so they're all big. They give him a bunch of hair on his chest, and he's got a horseshoe on his head for hair. It's just an amazing character. It's so out of character for Tom Cruise, but it's great to see him.
It is. I like that character.
Yeah,
they did that character for some like other things, like skits or some commercials or something, from what I understand.
I haven't looked that stuff up, but I'm sure they did. It was iconic. Yeah.
Okay.
It's ridiculous, but it's got its funny parts.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. There's okay. One final thing before we move on. There's a rapper that's in the cast, and he keeps plugging his energy drink called Booty Sweat.
Are you talking about in real life?
No, I mean, in the movie, he's a rapper that's famous, but he's playing a role in the movie. They're filming a movie in the movie, right? And he keeps plugging his energy drink.
Booty Sweat?
Yeah, Booty Sweat.
Not to be confused with Rocket Fuel malt liquor.
No.
Okay, Booty Sweat.
Yeah.
I think I would rather go with the Rocket Fuel malt liquor, wouldn't you?
The name alone, Rocket Fuel, definitely makes it sound like it's going to be more enjoyable.
Thank you. It does sound a lot more enjoyable than Booty Sweat does. Yeah.
In the focus group testing, I wonder how Booty Sweat did.
Well, especially because we're going to gain some insight into some focus group testing later in the episode.
Yeah.
I don't know why that disturbs me so greatly. The focus group stuff is almost the most disturbing thing on the show, I think.
Yeah, let's talk about it when we get there.
Okay. Yeah. Copy.
As Homelander is aggressively guzzling this little bottle of breast milk down, the door to the office opens and Ashley is there. Yeah, I let out a long sigh when I saw this, and I was like, man, I made such a big deal about her being taken off the show last season.
I was excited.
And now the Ashley fans win again. Let's see what shenanigans she can get up to this season.
Yes. And she's back with a vengeance this season too. I think she's way more front and center, I believe. And sometimes I have a difficult separating the actress or actor. Do we call them actors? What's the preferred?
I think actress is
still allowed. Okay. So I have to ask, you know what I'm getting at, but but you can't separate the actress from the role, sometimes. And so
I would have trouble separating her from this role. So I've never seen her in anything else.
Yeah. She reminds me of too much of Kathy Griffin, who annoys the crud out of me to begin with. So I've got that kind of Kathy Griffin vibe and away from her. It's like a younger, even more.
Is it the haircut?
It's the red hair, I think, because Kathy was always a redhead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably just the redhead thing. That's probably that, and her aggressive attitude. Just kind of that might be why I think that. I don't know.
Okay. I think the biggest problem for me with Ashley is she has no principles. She flips on a dime. She takes what she just said back just to kind of.
And we'll see that here in just a second.
Yeah.
Big time.
She opens the door quickly. She doesn't walk in. She's standing in the doorway. And when she sees Homelander's there, he's got his back to her. she gets this look of fear and surprise in her eyes.
Yes.
After an awkward moment, she turns on her fake corporate persona and greets Homelander. He drops the bottle and kind of licks his lips so there isn't any breast milk all over his face.
He doesn't want that milk mustache.
Mm-hmm. He greets her. He says, "Glad to see you're making yourself at home." And he's pointing out all the construction that's going on. Ashley says, "Renovation is definitely overdue. It's like 2003 called. They want their office back, you know?" Homelander says, "Huh, I liked it." She flips on a dime and says, "Yeah, me too. It was really great." Homelander, "I just want to thank you again for recommending me for this job. I was so surprised to get the call. I'm going to fill Ms. Stillwell's shoes as best I can."
And this is why we can't stand her, because of that. We would like the flipping over just like that. It's like,
yeah,
they want their office back. Now, this really shows my age too, in the fact that I know that it's almost 20 years ago since 2003. It's like, wow, that just feels like yesterday. It's like, is it really been that long? It has been.
yeah. Yeah. It's definitely been some time.
It's been some time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Homelander says, "God rest her soul." She says, "God rest her soul" as well. And then she says, "Have they had any luck catching her killer? That butcher maniac." Homelander tells her, "No, not yet, but we will." Ashley tells him she has good news. She thinks she found a hero, a perfect candidate to replace Translucent. Homelander turns around, surprised, and says, "Really?" She says, "Mm-hmm." He says, "So soon?" And she is smug.
Oh, she is.
And she says, "He's in the gym right now. You want to meet him?" Homelander says, "Do I?" He chuckles. "Lead the way." They walk into a really cool gym. A man is training. He has a javelin, and he's really adept at using it. He's twirling it around all over the place. He does a flip over something, and then he throws the javelin, neatly impaling a target dummy. Homelander asks, "That's Blind Spot, right?" Ashley has this huge grin on her face. She says, "A differently abled member of the Seven." Blind Spot is jumping over stuff, going through stuff. He's very acrobatic.
Yes, he is.
Ashley says, "We're going to pull through the roof with millennials. Inclusion's a big priority to them right now." As a millennial, I'll give my perspective on this. This attitude only applies to those that give a about corporations' virtue signaling. It's really a sad state that we're in.
Yes.
You know, I was going to say, I guess meritocracy isn't really acceptable anymore, but
Nope.
Who am I kidding, right? This is Vought. All they care about is public perception. It's not a matter of merit. It also doesn't explain how the Deep got on the Seven in the first place, right? What
Right.
merit does he have to be there?
Agreed.
I'm not saying that Blind Spot doesn't deserve to be there. My issue specifically with Ashley's attitude is that it promotes the idea that he is there to represent a subset of our population that is, I'm going to use air quotes, like not represented, right?
Right.
And because of this attitude, it casts doubt on whether he actually should be there based off of his merits. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I do get what you're saying. She is definitely just one of these people that is looking for the number of boxes that she can check in one on one person, because it makes, you know, like she said, this inclusion thing. And I've always been a believer in inclusion, but I've not been a believer in having it just constantly preached at me. But oh well, it is what it is, you know.
A fun fact on diversity: Black Noir is actually played by a black actor. His name is Nathan Mitchell. Now, we wouldn't know that. He's always wearing the face mask and everything. But,
Right.
you know, technically speaking.
Yeah, right. Right.
Homelander says, "Amazing." Ashley goes on, and then I think we find an ethnic or female, or fingers crossed, an ethnic female to replace the Deep, and we're golden. And to your point, she's just trying to check all those boxes, right?
Yes.
It doesn't even matter what else is out there. Could be the coolest superhero in the world. It could be any race, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just you could, but we're trying to check a specific box, so we have to only look at one portion of the population that may not have the best thing for whatever, you know. So that's really the issue. Blind Spot throws two knives, and they neatly pierce the necks of two of the training dummies. You picking up a Daredevil vibe from this guy?
Absolute. But the question is it a ripoff or an homage?
He doesn't have a whip.
Right.
Wait, does Daredevil use a whip, or is it like a baton?
It's a baton that he breaks in half. It can be a long stick, double sticks, and he can throw them. And he knows, because he's like Bullseye, and the fact that he can know angles and throw them and catch them and all that stuff. I don't know how they come back to him, but he's Daredevil. They come back to him apparently.
It's just like Captain America with his shield. He's a trigonometry expert.
Correct. I don't know if you know this, but that is actually a listed qualification of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops.
What, a trigonometry expert?
He is a master of trigonometry. Like, really? Like, I guess I can see how that'd be essential if you're going to be living in life with an energy beam as your weapon. But I was like, that's very strange. I was on this game I was playing. It's like, yeah, Cyclops is a master of trigonometry. I'm like, okay, so he can be a professor.
Interesting.
I guess when he retires from the superhero business.
Nice. Homelander claps Ashley on the back. He's smiling. Blind Spot walks up to them. He has a mask that covers his eyes. He says, Homelander, wow, it's an honor, sir. Homelander says, wait, hold on. You can tell it's me? Ashley says, mm-hmm. Homelander laughs and says, wow, that's impressive. Blind Spot says, you don't need super eyes when you have super ears. And he points at both of his ears. Homelander responds, can I just say, that is amazing. And you, my friend, are a true hero. Not because of what you do for a job, but he takes a deep breath. Well, because of what you've overcome. Blind Spot thanks him and says, that means everything coming from you. Ashley has this, oh, that's sweet look on her face.
She does.
Homelander tells him, aw, stop it. Come on. Hey, guys, I just have one question, if that's okay. Ashley says, yeah. Homelander says, yeah? All right. So he steps up to Blind Spot, then looks back at Ashley for a second, then turns to Blind Spot and asks, what happens if, I don't know, I do this? He takes both his hands and claps them over Blind Spot's ears, bursting both of his eardrums.
Dude, that's a lot of blood.
It is. It is horrible. Is that
fatal? That looks like that could be fatal.
That much blood coming out. It's out of your head.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cringing just thinking about it. Yeah. And the ringing that they have in the soundtrack is terrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. It's awful.
Blind Spot starts screaming. He falls to the ground. Blood's pouring all over the floor. We hear that terrible ringing sound. Ashley covers her mouth in horror and shock. Homelander stands over Blind Spot, looking down at him. He says, and now you're just another useless blind guy. Oof. He shakes his head and continues, this must be some kind of joke. Ashley, what made you think I would ever allow a cripple into the 7?
Wow.
For sake, Ashley, don't look at him. Look at me. And she's still staring at Blind Spot on the ground in horror.
You can't blame her. There's like 3 gallons of blood leaking from the guy's head.
It is one of the worst things we've seen on the show. Yes. Outside of Mesmer's death, the head being ripped open.
Black Noir opening that guy's head like a bag of chips.
Yeah. Come on, man. Jeez. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible, Billy. Oh my God. I'm never going to open another bag of chips without thinking about that now. Oh, man. Oh.
I did not mean to ruin it so bad for you. I apologize.
Well, maybe it's a good deterrent. Maybe it'll keep me from eating the chips. Maybe I should thank you. Yeah. Homelander yells, Ashley, look at me. She finally looks at him and apologizes. Homelander tells her, let's get one thing straight. The only reason you're here and not doing corporate PR for Diva Cups is that I brought you here. You are dispensable, which means you answer to me.
I kind of feel a little bit for her here. You know, I'm assuming she comes back to Vought because remember, she was not a pretty exit. And I'm assuming there's a substantial raise to boot with the, whatever position she's got. And I'm assuming that her interaction with Homelander has been extremely limited. I mean, I'm sure she's probably seen him more than most of us would see him on the street because, they work in the same building and she sees him, but she didn't seem to rub shoulders with him. But do you think that now she's just starting to realize that he's actually erratic and dangerous. I mean, after seeing him maim her prize pick of her differently abled soup.
She most certainly knew who he was. I'm going to rewind to the Believe Expo when Homelander came into that tent. He asked where Madeline was.
Oh, you're right.
And she said that Madeline wasn't there. He got into her.
That's right.
She was so scared she wouldn't even look at him in the eyes.
That's right.
She knew what it was when she came back, but I think she got greedy with the opportunity to be back at Vought.
Yes.
Like you said, probably a promotion. I don't know if she's senior VP, but she's probably some type of VP.
Yeah.
Right.
I would assume that, especially if she's assuming the old Madeline's Stillwell situation, she'd at least maybe be getting her old salary or something close to it. I'm assuming she's in the 7 figures, would we say, or more? Not the low 4. Was it the low? What did Mesmer want? I'm sorry.
Low 5 figures.
Low 5. That's what it was.
I would probably put senior VP somewhere in the $400,000-$500,000 range, maybe, and then with the bonuses, I don't know. But again, this is a wild guess, and depending on the company, it could be wildly varied.
I get it, sure.
Yeah. She says, this is Ashley speaking. She says, okay. Homelander looks at her for a moment and says, from now on, I will set my own agenda. I'll approve my own marketing. He's walking towards Ashley. He steps over a blind spot as he does, who's still convulsing on the ground.
And this is where we see a lot more blood on the ground.
He continues, and write my own talking points. You will tell me everything that goes on the 99th floor, and I mean everything. Every call, email, group chat. If a light bulb goes out, you will tell me. He's now standing about 6 inches in front of her. He says, and Ashley, in no way do you decide who goes in the 7. I decide. Do we have an understanding? She nods her head and quietly says, yes. I'm going to ask you something. It may take a little bit of a leap on your part. I want you to pretend that you're Ashley in this situation, witnessing what you just witnessed. Would you stick around? She can obviously go work somewhere else.
Right.
Do you stay with Vought when this madman, like she knew he was bad, but maiming someone in front of her, that probably hasn't happened before, right?
Yes, I'm assuming that had not.
And just, it's so malicious the way he does it, right? I mean, the guy is blind and deaf now.
Well, and the other big part of that is that before he does anything, according to all of our visual cues, Homelander seems genuinely, honestly impressed with this young man until he ruptures that guy's eardrums.
Yes.
You know, so I wouldn't stick around. But at this point, the question is, can she leave? Is she a hostage now?
It's a good question.
Because, I mean, if she leaves, she has a valid concern of whether Homelander is either going to, if she just quits after he's helped her out, dude, he might take personal offense to that.
Yeah, I could see him not wanting her out and about, knowing what she knows, maybe.
Yes. Or just tormenting her in some way, because he's so cruel, and he's as we're starting to see, he's becoming more sadistic. Or he's always been the sadistic. He's just letting it shine through a little bit more.
We're just seeing it now. We're witnessing it.
Right.
Starlight is in a taxi getting driven somewhere. Her mom is texting her. She's begging Starlight to call her. She's apologizing, saying she'll keep apologizing forever, then tells her she loves her. There's a screen in the back of the taxi, and Starlight sees an ad for Citizen Starlight. The voiceover says, bet you can't resist this arrest. America's hottest crime fighter is giving law enforcement a superpowered makeover in Citizen Starlight, coming this fall from Vought. Go ahead, make her day. Is that a Dirty Harry reference?
I'm going to assume that it is. I mean, anytime that we say, go ahead and make my day, it's usually referencing Dirty Harry.
Do kids nowadays know about Dirty Harry?
I would assume not. Most of the, and again, assumption is always wrong, but some of the younger kids, and I'm talking like kids that I put like in the close to 30s, some of those people do not know who Clint Eastwood even is.
Oh, man.
Right? That's tragic.
I mean, he's still making movies.
Dude, he's still making movies. I haven't watched a whole bunch of them, but I'm sure they're great. I love Clint Eastwood. I love Clint Eastwood so much this week. I've been wanting to watch it. I've just watched Good and Bad, the Ugly like last night. I've been wanting to watch it so bad. It's so good. So good.
$1 Million Baby. I love that movie.
Oh, that's tough.
It's a hard movie.
The one I think one of my favorite, one of his more, I say modern, this is not too modern even, but I loved the one, Gran Torino.
I was going to say that one too. Yeah, that's a great movie.
That's fantastic. He's so fantastic. And then that is like the ultimate curmudgeon. I love
that's the word I was going to bring up. Curmudgeon. Yep.
Curmudgeon. We can't say it enough. Curmudgeon.
Yeah. What was the one In the Line of Fire? That I always had a soft spot for that one.
Oh, is that the one where he's Secret Service, right?
Yeah, and then John Malkovich is trying to,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Malkovich, man.
Yeah.
Malkovich is really sinister in that. I love him in that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's good in everything he's in.
Man, please.
Mm-hmm.
He's awesome. You've seen Being John Malkovich, I assume?
I have not seen that.
Wow. You need to see that. That is really, really out there. And it turned me on to this director and writer. And did you ever see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Yes.
Same writer.
Okay.
So there is a really bizarre edge of fantastic. Do you know the premise behind it?
No.
At all? John Cusack. Oh, we're tying this together with the Cusacks all of a sudden. John Cusack is a puppeteer, and he's making no money. He's married to Cameron Diaz, who does not look like Cameron Diaz because she looks so weird. They have her looking so different in this movie. But he gets a job as a file clerk on the 13th and a half floor. There is a half floor designed for little people. Is that the correct
Yes
term? Okay.
I think
so. So he gets this job as a file clerk, and he drops these files behind and finds this small door behind the file cabinets. And there's a tunnel. He crawls through the tunnel. It eventually sucks him he's inside of John Malkovich.
Okay.
And you can see outside of Malkovich's eyes. I think it's like for 10 or 15 minutes, you get to stay in there inside of Malkovich. And then you're like ejected somewhere in some random location beside like the Jersey Turnpike or something. Not terribly far from where they start the journey, and eventually, being a puppeteer, he finally gains control at one point of Malkovich. And so Malkovich is playing himself, being played by somebody else.
Wow.
It's really interesting, and he's fantastic.
It's an interesting premise.
It's probably one of the best. Yeah, it's one of the best Cusack films, probably.
I always had a soft spot for Grosse Point Blank.
I love that and High Fidelity. Those are a perfect bookend movies. Same producer, same director, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe wrong on director, but it's the same writer, same producer, and you got Cusack in both of those. They're both really good.
Right.
But Grosse Point Blank, I love Hitman stuff. I love that stuff.
And then Dan Aykroyd's so weird in that.
Bing, bang, boom. Popcorn.
All right, well, dude, let's bring it back. Let's bring
right.
All right.
Okay.
Starlight, seeing the ad on the little screen in the back of the taxi, she's just tired of it. She activates her powers and breaks the screen, and then looks to see if the taxi driver noticed. She arrives at her destination. It's an inn. She's waiting for somebody. A car pulls up, and the guy that is on the piece of paper that Huey gave her gets out of a car. He's a Vought employee. The paper has it's a Vought employee record. The Vought employee was driven there by somebody. The two men go into a room. The Vought employee, he throws a bag down on the bed. He takes his shirt off. He's still got an undershirt on. And he takes out a sheet of plastic and he starts putting it down on the bed. He tells the other man he doesn't want to get stuck with the cleaning bill. He sets the plastic up, and then he pulls over a nightstand and he positions it next to the bed. He asks the other man, "So what's your poison? You a leg guy?" The man furtively tells him, an arm, please, actually. The Vought employee tells the other man, $400. The man pays him, and then the Vought employee gets out a machete. He takes his undershirt off, and then he hands the machete to the man. He sits down on the bed, and he sets his arm on the nightstand. The man asks him if he should saw or chop. The Vought employee says, "Whatever floats your boat, Tiger." The man psychs himself up, then he takes a swing. It takes him 10 swings to fully cut the arm off just below the elbow. And he gets more aggressive and frenzied as he does this. And
Yes.
by the end of it, he's
covered in blood, right?
Yes.
Right.
The VOD employee throughout this entire thing has no reaction, doesn't even look like he responds to the pain or anything if he's even feeling it.
Right.
He simply looks away to keep the blood from splashing on his face. The man thanks the VOD employee, then asks if he can keep the arm. The VOD employee stands up, and we see in real time his arm regrowing. He tells the man, yeah, just keep it refrigerated. The man doesn't respond. He just stares as the limb regrows in front of him. The VOD employee looks at him and says, for an extra grand, I'll let you chop off my... The man thinks for a moment, then says, where's the closest ATM? The actor they brought in for this guy that's paying for this, what do you think the casting call was for him? We need you to look like a man that has some type of sick fetish.
Right. We need a guy that can play the sweaty pervert role to a T.
Yeah. I was curious about that, man.
Because he looks like that. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if they're in the casting call for that particular, or if people see these people and they've read for different roles and they're like, you came here for this, but you would actually be perfect for that. I'm wondering if a lot of that goes on, a lot of shifting, like someone, and then someone's come in for one role, but another guy walks out with this role of the guy being the John for this guy.
Yeah. Sometimes they have binders of pictures of models and actors, I'm sure. And maybe now it's all computerized, but maybe they have the section for these types of people.
Right.
Or the Ashley type. We need that.
Right.
That type of person that looks like that.
I'm real curious. That's a good question. I'm curious how casting works in particular, because I'm always impressed. Well, the shows that end up making a big mark on us are the ones that are so well cast, even down to the little bitty bit players, because even the small guy can sometimes make a big difference on certain things. It's real weird.
Yeah. Can you imagine The Sopranos without James Gandolfini playing Tony Soprano?
I've not watched The Sopranos, but I do like who James Gandolfini is, and I understand that because he's pretty scary in that. So I would imagine that it would be different. It would be a lot different.
Do you not like mob stuff?
No, I do. I don't know why I never saw it. I just don't think I ever had HBO or something at the time. I have it now. I know it's on HBO Max.
Yeah, I think I've watched it like 3 times.
Wow. Okay.
It's that good.
I've always liked it. But, do you remember I think the first time I saw him was in Get Shorty. Remember, he's
he's Bear.
He's Bear.
The stuntman.
He's the stuntman, yes, and he's Delroy Lindo's bodyguard. Yeah, on that one. I love Delroy Lindo. Man, what a Get Shorty, fantastic.
Yeah, that movie.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I saw him.
Yeah,
he was great.
All right, Starlight was outside the room this whole time, seeing the whole chopping thing. She recorded it on a camera. Now, question for you. This is a hypothetical. Okay. A-Train needed 3,000 calories an hour to perform his super speed training. Otherwise, he'd pass out.
Right.
How many calories do you think this guy needs to regrow a limb?
That's got to be, I'm assuming calories would play a large part. It would have to, I can't imagine that. It'd probably be tens of thousands, wouldn't it?
It's going to be a heck of a lot, I imagine.
That's going to be a lot, but I'm curious if he actually needs it for like that, because first off, you brought up something, and I was going to ask you, but he doesn't look like he's particularly different after regrowing the arm, like famished or any like thinner.
Right. He doesn't look. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's no alteration. But the other thing is, I don't think he feels pain. Did you get that impression? Do you think he's just been exposed to it so much he doesn't feel it, or is it just that's his power is to be able to regrow stuff, so it can't hurt too much to lose a limb? I guess I would hope not.
Well, we're getting real hypothetical here, but does a lizard know when its tail? Does it feel pain when its tail falls off?
And that's a good question. I don't know, because it's an escape mechanism for them, right? So they can bolt and leave the tail and they'll grow another one.
It is a little bit different though, because the arm was chopped off. It wasn't designed to separate.
Right. But I'm wondering if maybe when that first cut kicks in, maybe his body's like, I'm going to be losing this part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
hard to say.
It doesn't. Yeah. Curious.
Mm-hmm.
Curiouser.
We see the inside of a dollhouse. A painting is askew. MM reaches in and straightens it out. He has a little square and is making sure everything is in the right spot. I love this. Do you think he's setting this up for his daughter?
I think so, but do you think there's some therapeutic side to it as well?
Probably, but I have to wonder why a dollhouse versus some other, like a Gundam model.
Yeah, well, we just don't know enough about him.
Right. I think it's funny. I like it.
It is. I like it too.
We hear some screaming. Then the door to the basement slams open. Some men are shouting in French. One is carrying another that is covered in blood on one side of his body. MM has him sit the wounded man down in a chair. Frenchie, Kamiko, and Huey rush in to see what's happening. One man yells, "Help him," in French. MM unwraps a blood-soaked towel from the arm, revealing the ruin that is left of it. Bones are sticking out, and there doesn't appear to be much skin on it. MM says, "Listen, he's broken every single bone in his arm, broken half his ribs. I can't do nothing here. You got to take him to the hospital." The man is speaking in French. MM asks Frenchie to translate to tell the man to take him to the hospital. There's a bunch of yelling back and forth between Frenchie and this man. It's all in French, but there are no subtitles, so I can't really translate exactly what was said.
Right.
The man yells something, and we can hear him say soup very prominently. Frenchie looks confused. He sits down. Huey wants to know what the man said. Frenchie doesn't respond. He's got that 1,000-yard stare. Huey asks again, louder, and Frenchie looks up at him. The next thing we see, the boys pull up at a location in their van. They get out. They see something that we can't. MM looks around and sees that there are security cameras. He goes into the office to see the footage. Frenchie and Huey follow him.
Wait. Before they go in the office, they show what they're looking at.
No, it doesn't.
It does not?
We don't see as the audience until Kamiko walks towards the camera and the camera pans around her. First of all, they pulled up to a key. And when the camera pans around, when Kamiko walks up to it, there's a boat that is on its side on top of the key.
Right. Okay.
She walks closer and looks around. She sees something on the ground. She walks up to it, picking it up. It's origami. She gets just the faintest touch of a smile on her face, but it quickly goes away.
Yeah.
Inside the office, the boys are watching the footage. MM asks if the cops have seen this. The security guard that's in the office tells him no one has seen it. He's not trying to get life without parole. We can see in the video a bunch of people are getting off the boat. There's a gang member with a gun directing the people. Frenchie says they promised me they would only smuggle in guns and cocaine and fentanyl. Not and he doesn't finish the sentence. Huey doesn't let him finish. Not human cargo. Frenchie says they didn't tell me. MM says, or you didn't ask.
I believe he asked because he earlier stated that, but that was alluding to a fact that he must have asked them if they promised him they weren't doing, we're kind of, but I'm assuming that human trafficking was part of what he was going to finish the sentence with.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He just didn't have the heart to say it, I think.
Yeah. So, and I've not seen anything that shows us to think that Frenchie is any kind of liar either.
Right. And you have to remember how he reacted to Kamiko being in that cage. He wouldn't take well to human trafficking.
No, not at all. I think it touches the spot. Yeah.
I don't think he'd voluntarily want to associate with people that were doing that.
Agreed.
Back to the surveillance footage. The last man to get off the boat is walking very slowly. The gang member with the gun starts yelling at him and then gets very aggressive. The man getting off the boat does kind of a Magneto-esque move, right. And he gets his hands and he lifts the boat out of the water and he throws it on top of the gang member.
Did you look at that real closely? It's funny, he didn't actually drop it on him. It looked like it dropped and he fell over because of the shaking.
Yeah, that is correct, because this is the gang member that they brought in with the crushed arm. So likely a barrel, because there's a bunch of the stuff that was on the deck. It's kind of on the dock. So those 55-gallon drums, if they're full of fluid, that falls on your arm, it's going to have that kind of effect.
Yeah, you're probably going to lose your arm, I imagine, over that kind of crushing.
You are correct. He doesn't throw the boat on him. He throws it near him, and then something falls off of it and lands on him.
Cool.
Yes, thank you.
Excruciating detail.
Mm-hmm. Huey says, a soup. Frenchie clarifies Huey's statement, saying, a soup terrorist. We can see the man running out of the dock area through various security cameras that caught him. Frenchie continues. They got paid to smuggle in a soup terrorist. MM and Huey just look at each other. We go to a woman leading a focus group. On the board, we see scariest term ? At the top. Below this, the following terms are written: super criminal, super villain, super terrorist, super outlaw, evil doer. She underlines super terrorist and asks the group how it makes them feel. A woman raises her hand and says, I hate it.
This kind of fascinates me for some reason, that we ask people how they feel about certain words and how if it makes them uncomfortable. You know, I want to know when it becomes my problem with how people perceive words. Now, I know that we watch what we say because we're doing a show, but that's a courtesy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to be offended if you're looking to be offended. And I'm shocked that so many people are walking around looking to be offended. I don't get it.
Okay, in this context, this focus group, it's Vought.
Right.
All Vought cares about is money.
Yep.
What they're trying to get out of this is the most effective way to communicate their messaging to get the response that they desire.
Right. And I do get it, but
right.
It's just weird. I mean,
now to your point about us doing a show, yeah, some of it's courtesy, some of it's, well, you don't want to get canceled,
right.
so you stay away from certain topics because you don't want certain individuals to get crazy on you, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the unfortunate state of the world that we're in.
Right.
But generally speaking, I think if you treat people with respect,
right,
and treat them as human beings with kindness, you will probably come out successful.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm. Back to the focus group. The woman leading the session says, that's a strong reaction, Margaret. I'd love to follow up on that. What do you mean when you say you hate the term super terrorist? The camera zooms out to behind a double-sided mirror. Ashley is watching the focus group. Margaret says, I just mean, it's really scary. It makes me want to lock the door and hide under the bed, you know? Ashley says, which means a double-digit drop the opening weekend of the Tech Night movie. Homelander chimes in. I keep saying supervillain is the better term. In the room, Margaret is saying, super criminals sounds like something in a cartoon. Ashley hits a button and says, Jill, ask them what they think about supervillain. Jill has an earpiece where only she hears this question. She then relays the message to the group, asking them what they think about the term supervillain. Margaret says, that sounds better to me. More exciting, more exotic. Homelander kind of gets a smug look on his face, then straightens it out. Ashley turns to him and smiles. Jill asks the group to turn their attention to two signs that they have in the room. Both of them have the same imagery. It's kind of split in half. Homelander, his face is on one half, and then behind him there are kids playing in a field with a kite. The other half is the U.S. military and a bunch of military equipment behind them. The U.S. military side has some soldiers' faces on it.
Right.
Now, the only difference between the two is the headline. One says saving the world. The other says saving America. Jill asks for a show of hands in favor of each. Not a single person raises their hand for saving America. Everyone raises their hand for saving the world. Now, one of two things could be going on here. Number one, this could be commentary on the state of the United States right now, where people are less excited to be Americans than they've ever been.
Right. I don't know why, but I'm still pretty excited about it.
Or two, we could be witnessing the cognitive bias effect. I want to say this is bandwagon because nobody thinks the first one is cool. So they don't want to raise their hand because nobody else did. Right. And then everybody together. So I don't know. What do you think?
I forget what that lady's name is. They told her Jill. So did sometimes how a question is asked can be very leading. You know, what's it like?
I don't think she led them. No.
I thought it was pretty non-biased. Is kind of what I was getting at. I felt she said it fairly. It wasn't one of those saving America or saving the world. You know, it wasn't like, you know, it's not, it wasn't like that. So I know she wasn't leading them, but I think that there's a lot of, there's so much I don't understand, but this animosity toward America. that especially you see more in cities, I think. I don't know why.
Is it the showrunners are trying to kind of just make a political statement saying, oh, this is kind of the trend that we're on where less and less people are happy to be Americans nowadays? Or is it they're just showing the cognitive bias where it's a bandwagon effect?
I think that you're right about that. I think it's the latter. I think, that they don't want to be seen as being, being the only person voting for something like that. It's a lot of pressure apparently for some folks. I think you're like me. I don't care. I speak my mind in places sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes can cause
it can cause some friction.
Yeah.
But but it's always, but if you say it cool, you can usually get away with
challenge.
It. Yeah,
I'm very. Right. I had in the past and still sometimes struggle with the tendency to be very blunt, and that doesn't always serve me well. I've been working on it, on wording things a little bit more politely in disagreement.
Right.
Yeah,
there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I've always been that way. Just a rebel. Never wanted people telling me what to do. So
yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah. Homelander shakes his head and says, "Nope, it's saving America." Ashley tries to push back, but Homelander beckons her over with his finger.
It's a scary wave of the finger, isn't it?
It is. He tells her it's Americans that are going to keep us in the army, not the world. It's saving America. Mm-hmm. Pull the trigger. He pats her on the back. She uneasily says, "Great, great."
I'm kind of impressed that Ashley, having been brought in, and especially now knowing that she is to be his yes woman for all intents and purposes, that she even says anything at all, especially after what just happened to Blind Spot down in the training room where that was a bloodbath. But yet here she is, I'm assuming the same day, willing to stand up to him again. So she's got some, let's just call it moxie.
Yeah, she did very kindly try to push back.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. She was showing some courage there, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The Deep is face down, sleeping on a leather couch. He wakes up to find Eagle sitting there looking at him. The Deep greets him and begins to get up. He wipes the drool from the couch and apologizes for the bathroom, saying he'll clean it up.
No, that was what I was referencing earlier about maybe that in the jail cell. I'm hoping he sat in it, but maybe not. Apparently, he wrecked the restroom.
Yeah, well, I mean, he might have thrown up too from being drunk, right?
That's true. That's true.
Eagle tells him there's no need to apologize. There's a woman in the room. When the Deep sits up and notices her, he jumps. Eagle tells him, "Oh, that's just Carol. Good friend. Carol, this is the Deep. She looks really creepy to me. Does she make you uncomfortable? Like, just she's got that look."
She does. Well, part of it is for me. She's another Breaking Bad alum as well. She's a good actress, and it's like she kind of plays off-center characters that are kind of odd and off-putting sometimes. And so she does look creepy and weird to me.
Yeah, there's something not right going on there.
Yeah.
Carol says, "I've been looking forward to meeting you, Deep." She stands up and offers him a Fresca.
Yeah. I love how they're using Fresca as a behavior modification tool.
You think that's what's going on?
I think it's exactly what's going on. Do you watch much Big Bang Theory?
None.
Well, yeah, it's pretty cute. Some of it's pretty funny. But Sheldon conditions Penny, that's the neighbor next door, to do things that he gets rid of some of her habits he doesn't like, and he conditions her with chocolate. But the Deep is kind of a simpleton sometimes, at least right now. And because think about it, he's only had people say yes to him. He's actually being in a place where he's learning what the word no is, and he's too old. He's too old to be learning the no at this point in his life.
The Deep takes the drink and thanks her. Eagle says, "Anyway, there's no need to apologize. We've all been there. It's tough." The Deep asks Ben where. Eagle tells him rock bottom. The Deep scoffs, saying, "I don't think I'm at rock bottom." Eagle says, "For me, my aha moment came with a hostage situation at Kroger. Multiple shooters. I showed up. I'm letting arrows fly. My aim is perfect, but there's only so many arrows a quiver can hold. I just ran out. And then we lost a lot of good people that day. Then you start to question, like, arrows against Tech 9s?
I have a note here that we got into this a little bit earlier, but Green Arrow and Hawkeye, if they don't have a bow and arrow, they can still go at it with other weapons. He knows how to aim very precisely. So I would think that would translate to another thrown weapon, gun.
Yeah, you could use the bow as a weapon itself, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because we've seen that you can use it as a staff, kind of. So there's several other ways for him to do this other than it's like unless that's all he can do. That's a very, very, very specific.
Yes.
My power only relates to bows and arrows only. Nothing else.
Carol chimes in, but Eagle corrects course, but I came to see that archery isn't irrelevant. It's timeless. It's a pure and ancient art. As he's speaking, Carol is mouthing the same words. Eagle says, Carol helped me see that. The Deep addresses Carol, asking, and what are you, his therapist or something? Carol laughs and says no. She goes on, therapy is very destructive, actually. You could say I'm his teacher.
Yeah, and she is really creepy. But her name is Jessica Hecht, I think is how you say that. But she was I'm going to label something here the Glenn Close effect, because you said you had the same reaction with her on Fatal Attraction, that you couldn't look at her for years because you couldn't take the role away from her. And so I think that Jessica Hecht is suffering from the Glenn Close effect.
Right.
Decent actress, good actress, but you have a hard time separating the roles from the person sometimes.
I see. Eagle says, what about you, Deep? The Deep says, what about me? Carol says, how did you end up here? Eagle encourages him, saying, you can tell her, Deep. The Deep laughs, saying, tell her what? Eagle says, about your drinking, about your self-esteem issues. Really open up, Deep. The Deep begins to deny the fact that he has a drinking problem. He says he's fine. Eagle tells him this is a safe space. Carol chimes in, asking the Deep, if you don't have any self-esteem issues, why are you constantly demeaning women? Eagle says, that's a good question. The Deep stands up and says, okay, thank you. You know what? I don't know what the this is, but it's weird as so I'm leaving. Carol says, they just want to help. Eagle says Carol really helped him. The Deep says, no, thank you. Carol plays her trump card, help you get back into the 7. This stops the Deep from leaving. He turns around to find Carol holding a book out to him. The cover reads, Church of the Collective Destinations, The New Science of Self-Renewal, 4th edition. Scientology?
Absolutely Scientology.
Okay.
Especially if we're going to throw science in the title, the new science of self-renewal. Because remember, the religion of Scientology is not supposed to be a religion. It's supposed to be like psychology. So
I'm not familiar enough with it to know.
It's weird. So
okay.
It's weird is all we need to know.
Okay. We see a TV broadcast for LOL TV. The sidebar headlines read, Ruby Cruz cast in Dawn of the 7, hashtag G2, question mark, G-Men scandal, sexiest soup selfies this month, up close and personal with Swato.
And I just love your attention to detail. I'm just going to commend you again here on air. It's like, I love it. And
thank you.
But so you go into this stuff and you bring up to me, I'm like, who is Swato? So this was eating at me. So I looked up Swato. He's a minor character in season 3.
Okay.
Of the Amazon series, The Boys.
Interesting.
So he's a prominent member of the superhero team Payback. I'm curious about that. Is that going to be like the mercenary group? Is that where Gunpowder is going to be then with this guy? You think Swato and Gunpowder?
Oh man, Gunpowder? I don't know.
In Payback?
I don't know. The only preview I've seen a woman in red, kind of looks like Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
I haven't done any research, haven't looked at anything, haven't started watching season 3. I'm going to wait till after we finish this.
I'm not either. I'm like you. I'm dying to cover this together because a couple things I've seen make me think that I'm going to make a big call here.
Okay.
So having not watched any of it, I'm like you. I haven't watched any of it, but just from what I can see, unlike when you turn on television, there's the pictures of people from Watch the Boys. It's on Amazon, and it's the guy that plays the Deep's got a beard. and they show him prominently. I'm thinking he's going to go rogue, dude, and he may become villain. What do you think?
Oh, I haven't seen that picture. I do not know.
That's a call for me, though. I'm gonna think maybe he will try his hand at being a super villain. But real quick, like Swatto had the ability to grow insect-like wings from his back and to fly in the air.
That's it.
That's it. So he can fly.
Okay, so he's like human-sized Tinkerbell
Or Angel, or that chick that was singing. It's a belief.
Well, they're insect-like wings, though, right?
They are insect-like wings, yes, but he can fly with them.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm assuming maybe it's not attractive as angel wings.
No, it is not.
This is why we differentiate between bird-like and insect-like wings.
Right. The news anchor is covering the Deep's drunken escapades at the water park. On the TV, we see the Deep standing next to one of those displays with the cutout where you can stick your face through for a picture. It reads at the top, "Be a superhero." The 7 are all there. Translucent doesn't have a cutout since you wouldn't be able to see the face anyway. Thought that was a nice attention to detail.
Nice.
The part where the Deep would be has been cut out, and they have the real Deep standing there instead. That's really messed up, actually.
It's got to be humiliating.
Yes, I agree. We see that Kamiko is watching this broadcast. She looks like she's thinking about something. She gets up and grabs Frenchie's attention, handing him the origami she found by the boat. He asks if she made it. She shakes her head. She grabs her notebook and writes something in it and hands it to Frenchie. He is happy she wrote something. The activity catches MM's attention. He was working on the dollhouse. Kamiko wrote "boy" on the paper. Frenchie asks, "What boy?" She grabs the origami and is pointing at "boy" repeatedly. Frenchie doesn't understand. Kamiko gets frustrated and walks off. Frenchie walks over to Huey and MM. Huey says, "Okay, so?" Frenchie shakes his head and says, "They were wired the money from a blind account to smuggle the bastard in, cold trail." Huey pops off saying, "Amazing friends of yours."
These friends have given you a place to lay low, Huey. Easy.
I guess the human trafficking component probably really set him off.
These guys are definitely unethical, to say the least, because MM's pulling bullets out of them,
right?
And they're helping with the drugs, and they're selling firearms as well.
Right.
So,
right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of like you know that these are unscrupulous people. Is that really? I mean, yes, it's fine to have a line, but it's like, I'm okay with this, and I agree. I don't want to be associated.
Yeah, fentanyl kills enough people too. So you're right. You're right.
But I mean, just saying, Huey just needs to chill out, bro. It's like, dude, especially if you're in that place with them, what if they take? Well, you better hope they're not speaking English that well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Frenchie gets defensive, telling Huey, "I never said they were my friends, huh? I only said we will be safe here." Huey looks at MM and asks, "What do we do?" MM tells him to just call 911. Huey says, "What, an anonymous tip?" "Yeah, I'm sure that'll go straight to the mayor. You saw that video. What if he does that to an airplane or the Brooklyn Bridge?"
Right.
MM asks what Huey's big plan is. Huey proposes they go to Susan Rayner at the CIA. MM says, "Right, the same CIA that wants to clamp our nuts into some jumper cables." Frenchie says they could call Butcher. Huey again states they don't need Butcher. Frenchie asks, "Then what?" Huey finally lets out his plan. "We should call Annie." MM chuckles and shakes his head. "Call Annie." He turns around and looks at Huey. "Annie? You mean Starlight? Because that's who she is. Vought has her phone so bugged. They're praying that you do that." Huey kind of looks down. MM says, "Oh no, you called her." Huey says, No, I'm not stupid, okay?" He pauses, then says, "I texted her." MM closes his eyes and says, "Oh." Huey continues, "And then we met up, but we're getting some compound V." MM grabs Huey's collar and slams him back against the wall, yelling, "You, Huey, are you crazy?" Frenchie tries to calm MM down. MM yells again, "Are you crazy?" Huey says they were careful. MM asks, "What are you doing?" Huey says they use burner phones. MM says, "Kid, you don't get it. They could have been following you. They could be watching us right now." MM is inches from Huey's face. He's waving a finger at him. He says, "If you're the reason why I can't finish that Vermont County dollhouse, I will end you." This is a big issue for him, isn't it?
It is. I said therapeutic here, but I think it's probably shows more in particular that it is probably for his daughter.
Okay.
In that response, it's like not being able to finish that because he's put a lot of effort into it. You can tell he's put a lot of effort into it. It's nice looking, and that kind of makes me think it's for his daughter.
Right. I just think it's funny that he's got like a square and he's making everything in the perfect spot, and then you give
Yes.
something like that to a kid,
Oh yeah.
and it is getting
Oh
destroyed.
yeah. Immediately.
Yeah.
The paintings are on different walls.
Huey tells MM, "You've been walking around for days like you want to kick my so do it already." MM grimaces. He starts shaking. Frenchie grabs his shoulder and turns him around. MM stalks off saying, "Damn it." Frenchie motions for Huey to stay back and leave MM alone. MM says, he turns around and says, "I don't want to kick your Huey. I just don't want to get dragged back into this, all right? I want to get home to my wife and my kid. That's it, if I still can." Huey says, "This guy could kill a lot of people." MM tells Huey to let somebody else handle it. Huey says, "There's no one else. No one's coming to save us." I recently heard a quote that resonated with me. The best day of your life is the day you realize that no one is coming to save you.
I think that's a really interesting statement. Do you know who said that, or was it just something you just overheard?
Yeah. It's this guy that he's got a YouTube channel. I think his name's
Okay.
Justin Waller.
Okay. I really like that. Does this negate the aspect of family, or is it just to know your family is there for support, but you have to look out for yourself kind of thing?
Well, he didn't have the best upbringing from what I gather. I think his parents got divorced when his mom cheated on his dad.
Oh, okay.
But he's a pretty successful entrepreneur. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to motivate young men to take responsibility for their lives,
Okay.
to get out from living in their parents' homes, to go make something of themselves. And I think the intent of this statement is to really just get people to realize that they need to do something to improve their future.
Yeah, and I forget that a lot of these younger generations choosing to stay at your parents a lot longer is a thing, and I forget this, because I was ready to get out.
Right. But I think when you were young in the 80s, I guess 90s would be closer when you were moving out,
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the housing costs were probably a little bit lower than they are today.
It was, and my situation was a lot different than most folks too. I mean,
Yeah.
in the house that I had, so it's a lot. I know it would have been hard, but but yeah, the housing situation was definitely a lot different, a lot easier back in the day. So,
between the housing costs and then the wages not going up, and then all the different issues we've had economically over the since
gas is the worst attack on people's check.
Yeah, and it's pretty high right now.
It's very high, and having come from having grown up in the gas station business, I've always so offended by the fact that people want to be mad at the companies for making money off this product, but the government's making 1,000 times more profit off this same thing. And with gas prices going up, that's impacting everybody. But gas impacts the lower class people more because they have to have a car to get somewhere.
In Texas, now, if you live in a big city where they actually have good public transportation,
that's true.
It might be a little bit more manageable.
Yes, I agree.
In Texas, I was really amazed with how it was in Dallas, because they had that train that ran, quite a few trains, that it was actually kind of a legit scenario where you had public transportation. But in Houston, it's so spread out. I mean, it's really not.
Yeah, it's a different thing. And I understand that, like the big cities like New York, I know they got buses all over the place. I think it's
trains,
like you
subways.
said, and the subways in particular. You have a whole transit system designed to move millions of people around every day.
Yes,
that don't have vehicles or aren't using vehicles on a daily basis.
All right. MM says, "You don't get it. You're not a soldier. You're not a spy. You're just a kid that sells stereo equipment." Huey interrupts saying, "No, I don't. I don't have a job, or Robin, or my dad, or Annie. One way or another, they all, He doesn't really finish that thought. He says, "Now, all I have is this." He waves around the basement and reiterates, "This," which is really depressing, but it's true. So maybe I can't be Lee Marvin, but I can be Harry Potter. Or, John Connor, or what's her name from the Hunger Games? Frenchie says Katniss.
When I first wrote these notes, I was wondering if I thought Frenchie was smiling when he says this, but then I rewatched it, and indeed, he never breaks that serious. It's like this stone cold serious. Katniss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He just knows the answer. I thought he was like smiling, like, oh, okay, cool. But no, it was a definite no. I'm dead serious, but it's Katniss.
Yeah. Huey kind of looks at Frenchie in surprise, then shakes his head. Yeah, the point is, I could be the person that nobody thinks is awesome, but it turns out they're kind of awesome. Huey steps forward and says, listen, we helped the CIA lady. She could help you maybe get back to your family. Did you ever think of that? Thinks and just sighs. Would you agree that this is Huey's version of the Spice Girls speech?
It is, I think, but it's better because it comes really from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a lot of heart on display.
What I'm particularly concerned about is his attachment to this being all that he has.
Right?
That is not a good mental state to be in. Because what's the difference between him and Butcher?
There's not. Yeah, you see him in the exact scenario that made Butcher what he is. Mm-hmm. And Huey is still in this scenario while Butcher is still nowhere to be found.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's he very similar to Butcher. You're correct.
We switch to a diner. The Butcher Madeline reenactment is playing on a TV when Starlight walks into the diner.
And all I can hear is that, I'll bollocks you.
Oi.
Oi.
You shut your mouth.
Oh, my goodness.
The Vought employee she followed is eating there. She addresses him as Gecko. She asks, is that you? He does a double take and says, Starlight. I mean, Annie, hi. He stands up and gives her a hug. He says, look at you, big time 7 hero. She tells him, oh, shut up. He tells her that he works at Vought in the labs on the 67th floor. She pretends to be surprised. He tells her he sees her posters everywhere. They're marketing the out of her. She scoffs. He says he's happy for her, really. He then offers to buy her some coffee. Fast forward and they're both sitting down at the table. Starlight is being served coffee. They're reminiscing about some past Capes for Christ experiences. She commends his performance as Jesus. He said, no one can take a nail to the hand like I can. And this is kind of disturbing to me, the fact that they might actually truly nail him to a cross for a play just because he can heal himself.
If they did that, that would be absolutely disgusting if they did that, but I'm assuming that is the implication.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it. Yeah. Apparently, Starlight played Mary in the play. Starlight is talking about how the guy that played Pontius Pilate had a crush on her, but she never made out with him because Ezekiel and her mom told her God was watching. She says she wishes she had made out with him because now she thinks there's nothing up there. She says there's nobody in the sky watching over us. Not God, not Homelander, not anybody. It's all just lies. Now, do you think she's going to have some revival in faith by the end of this storyline?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we'll definitely see that.
Yeah. And also, I was reading up on Garth Ennis, and this kind of echoes his experiences as a child, the way he describes his fear of God when he was in school as a child. Yeah.
I can see that. I know that where he is from, like we said, he's from Northern Ireland, and he's approximately my age. I mean, he may be a year or two older or a year or two younger. I'm not sure. But I know that there was a heavy Roman Catholic presence there. So I know that
he was born in 70.
Oh, okay. So he's a little bit younger than me. He's about 6 months. I was born in 69, so he is my age.
Okay.
So and so there would be a super heavy Catholic presence there, and so that especially certain regions or in certain areas of different places will really lean heavy on some churches will present different images of God basically to their different congregations. I feel it's always going to be due to the preacher. And so I think that they have a lot of this, this big fear of God is taught, and it's not fear like you should be afraid. It's more like fear of respect, not, you shouldn't be terrified of God. You should be to some extent, but so I think that plays a lot in certain areas like that where that you see such a heavy Catholic influence in smaller parts of the world. Like I think he's from a relatively small area. small town.
Okay.
And also now Starlight's reaction here about the nobody up there and all that stuff, that's a very common reaction for kids who have no defense or having been shown any, like we've talked about. Again, for people listening, I have a whole episode where I talk for way longer than you probably care about apologetics. If kids were taught just a fraction of this, they wouldn't be so easily to throw it out. But that's a very common. And I like that they, but yes, go back and look at our library, folks. Episode 5.
Episode 5, the long version.
The long version,
not the short version. Yeah. Gecko kind of looks away uncomfortably. After a long, awkward silence, she says, "I need a favor." He says, "Yeah, anything for a Bible camp alum." She clears her throat and says, "I need you to go into the labs on 67 and steal me a sample of compound V." He says, I don't know what that is. He's really dissembling.
Yes.
She says, see, another lie. I know how we're made, and it is not Jesus. He tells her he can't. It's impossible. He's a nobody there. He's a lab rat. They cut off his limbs and they grow back. She gets out her camera and says, "You have to, or I put this on Facebook tonight." She shows him the recording. She narrates, Gecko, former teen star of Vought's Summertime Clubhouse, working as an S&M hooker as a side hustle. I'm sure inquiring minds will want to know.
Yes, they would.
He says he thought that they were friends. She apologizes, saying they're not anything. He has a really sour look on his face.
Wow, she's gotten kind of sour herself, hasn't she?
She's kind of bitter, I think.
Yes, she is.
Last season, she had a traumatic experience with the deep. She is thrust into this world. She finds out that her mom's been lying to her entire life about her powers coming from God when she was created with compound V.
Right.
So she's upset with her mother. Her mother then shows her that she was expecting to get something out of this all along and doesn't care so much about how she feels. It's more about how the mom feels. So all of that in a relatively short amount of time, you can see kind of why she'd be bitter.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm not faulting her for that. I'm just
I just thought it'd be good to recap all the things that led to this point.
and it also goes to our discussion earlier about tone of the season. This tone is so far is a darker tone.
Yeah. Oh, one additional thing. Huey, the one thing that she thought was good in her life was lying to her. So now she feels betrayed.
Right. Yeah, that's really the one I think that hurt the most.
There's a couple of them in there that are pretty bad. Yeah. It's hard to rate.
Well, the deep stuff, that's really bad. But having a guy that you finally got really close with, so close that they were intimate, and then having find out that he lied about certain aspects of
that same day.
That's that's harsh.
Yeah. We go to Homelander and Maeve. They are surrounded by soldiers and military equipment. Maeve is speaking to the camera. She says, "Hi, you know who we are, but let's meet another hero." They introduce a Marine that is standing with them. Homelander says the soldier and the other Marines of the 2nd Battalion are helping to keep the audience safe from the supervillain threat. This is the commercial they're using the language that was informed from the focus group.
Yeah, they moved there quick too, didn't they?
Maeve says they are proud to fly alongside the Marines, and now they could use the audience's support. Homelander says, "That's right, Maeve, with our new campaign, Saving America." The camera switches to a new character. She is live streaming to an audience on her cell phone. She tells them, "Here I go, guys. Wish me luck." She says, "Oh, FYI, not a real base." And she turns the camera around to show there's a commercial shoot in progress. The camera switches to what the live stream is seeing. In the upper left corner, it says Stormfront_official. There are 1.8 million people watching the stream.
Wow.
We hear Stormfront say, as if Homelander and Maeve are going to eat MREs and piss in a ditch with the rest of the grunts. Speaking of which, we've never seen either of them eat anything, have we?
Not that I'm aware of. Were they eating in that Christmas party?
I think Maeve had a drink, and Homelander...
And Noir reached for the canapes.
Yeah, but we never actually saw him.
He never achieved achieved contact on that one.
Right.
But also these guys can't be seen with food on their uniforms.
Right.
Goodness.
Yeah. You don't
That
want
would
to
look
get
terrible.
some like mustard or cheese sauce on the front of your beautiful
It's
uniform.
okay to get some blood and brain, I guess, but
Yeah.
not the cheese sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We can see Ashley in the live stream video. She is confused and telling Stormfront they're filming now. She's saying, "Excuse me." The Stormfront does not give two shits about what Ashley is saying to her. She just keeps going on.
No.
Stormfront has not even acknowledged Ashley and is going on about how the audience may recognize Army Boy as hotel clerk number 2 from the Devil's Breath episode of Criminal Minds Beyond Borders. Homelander sees Stormfront and says, "Well, hello." Stormfront says, "Oh my God, hi. My Nana's your biggest fan. I'm Stormfront." Homelander is being filmed in the live stream, so he can't really show his true reaction.
Right.
He says, "Great." And he's got kind of this weird fake smile on his face. Maeve says, "From Seattle, right?" Stormfront says, Portland, actually, your highness. And she kind of does a little pan up and down on Queen Maeve when she's saying your highness. The chat in stream has people correcting Maeve's mistake. You know, they're Stormfront fans.
Yeah, right.
Stormfront says, "Holy." She walks up to Homelander and says, "Your eyes are really blue up close." He chuckles uncomfortably. He says, "You are fun. It's been a hoot, but we got work to do, so let's get back to it." Stormfront says, "Oh, totally. They just wanted me to meet you." Homelander was walking away. He turns around. He says, "Who?" Stormfront tells him, "Oh, the boys on 82. I'm the new girl." Maeve says, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And remember, this is all being live streamed, so it's really awkward.
It's well done for Stormfront.
Yeah.
Smart, I guess, on her part.
Well,
even though she annoys me.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. Stormfront says, "Oh, hi. I'm in the 7. She puts her hand over her heart and says, "Replacing translucent." She's looking into her camera and does the Signum Crucis and says, "God bless his soul." Ink's barely dry, but yeah, reporting for duty. So, yeah.
Is the Signum Crucis, I'm assuming, where the Catholics cross themselves? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not Catholic, so I didn't know what it's called.
I had to look it up. I didn't want to misname it.
Nice.
So
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the diligence, sir.
Yeah, sure. We can see Ashley freaking out. She says, "No, I don't think that it's not true. I don't know anything about this." I think she's just scared for her life at this point. She's probably worried Homelander will blame her for this.
Oh, yeah. You better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she looks really, and I feel for her. She does look real terrified.
Yeah. Homelander is quick to recover. He says, "Wow. Well, Stormfront, who delivered the good news?" He's smiling, but it's not in his eyes. His charm level is at like 45% right now.
I love how we refer to his charisma almost like a power, because he does wield it like a, doesn't he?
Yeah, because sometimes it's like blazing 100%. Sometimes higher than 100%, right? But right now, he's not being the bad Homelander, but he's being semi.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Stormfront says, "Oh, Mr. Edgar, the big guy," and she's acting all kind of like the way she said was, no, it was more like, like she was unsure of herself a little bit, but she's coming in here and
she's trying to be coy, you mean?
Yeah. Homelander says, "Wonderful." He claps his hands and says, "Great. All right." He begins walking away and gives a thumbs up. There are some interesting comments in the live stream chat. "Whoa, Mr. Edgar, for real?" Somebody else says, "Stan Edgar." Somebody else says, "Where's he going?" referring to Homelander walking away from Stormfront's camera. Stormfront turns the camera to herself and says, "Well, I think this is going great." They did a pretty good job of introducing this character.
Yes, agreed. Real good job.
And I was thinking, how can somebody make Ashley look good? Or how can they make you feel like you're on Homelander's side?
I don't know.
Because I immediately hate her.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I immediately dislike this woman as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the live streaming thing or her attitude.
It's her whole attitude.
Yeah,
it's a little. It's the both. I think, I have this many viewers, so I'm going to just, I want to go do this, that. I'm going to be important, and it's like, yeah, it's just it's just an arrogance thing, I guess. It just
Yeah.
makes you just really thoroughly dislike her.
Yeah. And she's always got this kind of, we said Maeve was sassy, but there's this certain level of just, I don't give a about the
Yeah.
way she's acting that it doesn't sit well with me. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I agree.
We're taken inside the van with the boys as they're driving somewhere. is telling Huey, you ain't John Cusack, man. You ain't got no mother boombox. Huey says, sorry. Says, you want to get back together with Starlight? Huey tries to deny it. asserts he does, but this isn't the way to do it. He can't keep pulling the calling her, texting her. He asks if Huey is crazy. Huey tells him he sounds like Butcher and says, she's on our side. says, I know. I'm saying this for her, kid. You're putting her in danger. As they are talking, we see Kamiko in the back playing with the origami figure she found. Frenchie is watching her. tells Huey, Homelander finds out she's been talking to you. She's the deeper you keep pushing her into this thing, the deeper in the meat grinder she goes.
Right.
They arrive at their destination to meet with Raynor. They're meeting under a huge billboard advertising Dawn of the Seven. She asks how they're doing. tells her they're hanging in there. She asks if Butcher has contacted them. tells her nope, he's completely ghosted. She asks if thinks he killed Madeline Stillwell. says he'd like to think he didn't, but he doesn't know. He says he knows it may not be the best time to ask, but does she ever? She says, hear about your family? Your daughter is starting soccer, I think. smiles and says, soccer? Huey steps up and asks if can see them. Raynor says, you know what? Let's see if this checks out, and I will see what I can do. thanks her. Susan asks for a description of the guy they saw get off the boat. Gives her his description. He rattles off at least 6 attributes of the individual, and Huey says, you got all that from a video?
What?
Susan is nodding. She says, so the other shoe drops, and it just crushes us all. says, meaning? She goes on, meaning I've been trying to put this puzzle together, and there's a missing piece, and it's been driving me nuts, and I think you just handed it to me. says, okay, so then what's the whole picture? She tells him the whole picture. It's Vought. It's a coup from the inside. Huey asks what she's talking about. She shakes her head, then her nose starts bleeding. Huey points it out to her. She wipes it away with a finger, then her head explodes, covering the boys and the side of the van in gore. Pulls out his gun and yells, let's get the out of here. Huey yells, holy. They jump in the van and speed off. Frenchie is yelling, there must be a soup out there. Huey is yelling, are our heads going to explode?
That's a valid question.
Yeah, it is. Definitely a point of concern. asks Frenchie, who do you know who could do that? Frenchie tells him no one. Huey again asks if their heads are going to explode.
On this rewatch, her getting her head blown off and Noir opening that dude's head like a bag of chips. Those are the things that I can only remember from the show from having watched it over a year ago. I can't think of a show that has been so inventive in its use of violence. Can you?
I'd have to put some thought into it.
Now, there could be some argument. And if you haven't watched this, have you seen Ash versus the Evil Dead?
No.
Oh.
But he has a chainsaw attached to his hand, right?
He does, but it's not just that. There's some really disturbing gore that's really funny. That in that one that's just as disgusting. Ash gets pulled. There's a corpse's body's parts come to life and attack him at a morgue, and grabs him by the neck. The intestines grab him by the neck and pull him up the backside of a corpse, and he's looking out through the Y-shaped incision of the torso of a. So those two shows are as weird and wild with their violence and their gore as anything I've ever seen. But it's also Evil Dead related, so it's just kind of funny and violent and disturbing all at once.
Yeah, sounds
like this.
Yeah,
it's very much like this.
We see an NNC interview on the TV. NNC is using the recently criticized breaking news header. Apparently, everything on CNN was breaking news. So the new owners said only to use it for actual breaking news stories. They're not allowed to use it for the president is making a press conference or,
Right.
normal everyday occurrences are not breaking news. Yeah.
Breaking news. The president said, it's like they do that. But yeah, I hadn't heard about that. This is the first I'd heard of that.
Yeah.
Being criticized for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because how much can something be breaking?
Yeah. We're introduced to a new character, Congresswoman Newman. She is speaking out on soup terrorists. On the bottom of the screen, we see these topics. Is soup terrorism a real threat? Stocks set to tumble amidst global terrorism fears. Healthcare or who cares? That's a good one.
I like that one. Yeah. That's good.
She is saying, I'm worried about super terrorists too, but that does not mean that Vought can use that fear to control us. We see Mr. Edgar is watching this in his office. Homelander barges into the office without knocking, telling Mr. Edgar good morning. He used to pull this on Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
The secretary apologizes to Mr. Edgar, and he tells her it's all right. Homelander points to the TV and says, busy day. Mr. Edgar says, good morning, Homelander. He turns off the TV. He says, to what do I owe the pleasure? Homelander says, well, you never come up to 99, so I figured I'd pay you a visit. Mr. Edgar says, what a lovely idea. Homelander chuckles, saying, right? After all, you run a superhero company, and you never check in with your superheroes, do you? Like, I don't know, around the hiring of that girl, for example. Homelander is having a tantrum, and he's not talking to Madeline anymore. He's about to be taken to school. What we are about to see is how a man like Mr. Edgar deals with a petulant, entitled child.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that. Because of the fact that he's not even intimidated or vaguely troubled. Now, I know he's smart, and Homelander's not going to be one of these guys to offhandedly just try and murder a guy that disagrees with him. But do you think that Edgar has any kind of enhancements?
I truly do not know. I
don't either.
Think about Mr. Edgar is he is a master at what he does.
Absolutely.
When he is in a room, he is the center of that room.
Yeah.
Mr. Edgar says, you wish to be consulted on Stormfront? Homelander says, well, why not? I signed off on all the rest. I'm the leader of the 7. Mr. Edgar, smiling, says, for which you have my undying respect. Homelander says, see, I don't think I do. No, not even Madeline would have dared to try and pull this kind of. Mr. Edgar is unfazed. He says, of course, you know how important you are to everyone at Vought. Homelander says, no, Stan. I am Vought. You show my photo to some illiterate camel jockey in the middle of the Sahara, he's going to turn around and say, Homelander, in perfect American. You know what? He then takes his cape and does the little flourish thing and sits down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He continues, my contract's up end of this year. Maybe it's time I move on. He then puts his feet on Mr. Edgar's coffee table. He asks, how do you think your shareholders would feel about that? Homelander has a grin on his face. He thinks he's won this conversation. Mr. Edgar is no longer smiling. He's just looking at Homelander with this very serious expression on his face.
Are you waiting for him to walk up behind him with the box cutter about this point?
That is that same look, isn't it?
It is that look, dude.
Yeah.
That's that horrifying look.
Mm-hmm.
That's, oh my goodness.
Mr. Edgar waits for an uncomfortably long amount of time and asks, what do you know about Frederick Vought? He takes off his glasses and folds them up. Homelander says, excuse me? Mr. Edgar repeats himself. Frederick Vought. He puts his glasses down on his desk. He then walks over to a painting and gestures at it, saying, our esteemed founder. Homelander says, well, I don't know, not a lot, probably. I only read his autobiography 5 times. He chuckles. Mr. Edgar says, not the self-serving bull that we peddle to shareholders. The real story. Homelander says, enlighten me. Mr. Edgar begins. got his doctorate from Munich ahead of his time in genetics. Such the rising young star that in 1939, Hitler appointed him chief physician at Dachau, where he enjoyed a ready supply of human subjects on which to test his earliest iterations of Compound V, for which we condemn in the strongest possible terms. Early in 1944, he felt the winds change, got spirited away to the Allies. When Oppenheimer was flailing with the bomb, Dr. Vought already had practical applications of Compound V tested in the field. Heroes like Soldier Boy killing Germans by the dozen. You think that's Captain America?
Oh, yeah. Even right down to the German doctor who makes the formula that helps make Captain America.
Yeah. Mr. Edgar continues. So Roosevelt pardoned him, and he became as wonder-bred American as Disney and Edison.
Is this part of the Operation Paperclip?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Homelander says, well, this is a truly fascinating, if not slightly condescending lecture, but I don't think I see the point, Stan. Mr. Edgar does not miss a beat. He says, the point is that you are under a misconception that we are a superhero company. We are not. What we are, really, is a pharmaceutical company. And you are not our most valuable asset. That would be our confidential formula for Compound V, which you, man-child that you are, released into the wild. Homelander starts to sputter. He says, don't know what you're talking about. He repositions himself in the seat. Not a very good poker face.
No.
Mr. Edgar says, well, let me remind you. You slipped Compound V to terrorists all over the globe to get you and your cronies into national defense, but maybe at the cost of destroying the whole company. All this is said while he's smiling. Homelander jumps to his feet aggressively. He approaches Mr. Edgar and says, I don't think I appreciate your tone, sir. Not much at all. Mr. Edgar says, wow. And I don't appreciate that the FDA now knows about Compound V, or that it's only a matter of time before the public finds out. While you're preening at the Golden Globes, we're busy running around like maniacs trying to clean up the mess you made. I don't have to consult you about Stormfront or anything else. Now, I believe you have a premiere of Tech Night Lives to go to. Homelander's face is twitching as if he's trying to control himself.
Yes.
Next, we see he's walking down the hallway at Vought as he leaves. This was just a masterclass from Mr. Edgar on how to own someone. Not a slip in his composure one time.
Not one.
What do you think about the way he handled himself in that scenario?
Oh, he was absolutely masterful in that scenario. Not scared, not intimidated, not going to be bullied. He is the one. But then again, I remember back to season 1 when he throws the notes of Mr. Edgar into the trash, Homelander does. And when Madeline tells him, it's like, well, I'll tell Mr. Edgar that you didn't want to say those. And he goes over and bends it up, unfolds it, unwrinkles it, and gets that paper straight real quick, doesn't he?
He does. Yep.
So Edgar is worthy of respect.
Yeah, it's almost like he truly fears him.
Yes. On the fears him kind of thing, would you assume that a company that makes soups would have some kind of remedy in case that they needed to administer it to someone like Homelander?
When you say remedy, you mean to remove his soup powers?
To strip it. Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. Because he breathes, as far as I can tell, so they could aerosol something, for him or for any of them, for that matter.
Right. Maybe.
That would maybe counteract the V or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they just invented V and then just is static for 60 years or whatever, Yeah,
they've been working at it and fine-tuning it since Mr. Vought came over himself, or Dr. Vought came over.
Yeah. Okay. Longer than 60 years, like 80 years.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Next, we see Homelander lands in a driveway to a perfect house. As he walks up to the door, we see the floor mat reads, "You better have tacos."
I need that mat.
All right.
That's a great one. I like it. I love tacos too.
Yep. Homelander takes a deep breath and knocks on the door. Becca opens the door. She doesn't look happy to see him. She says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Well, I've come to see my son." He smiles. Back in the boys' basement, MM is heavily sanitizing himself with Purell. I mean, he's rubbing it all the way up his arms, not just his hands.
Yes.
I mean, he must have pumped that thing like 10 times. So much Purell going all over the place.
I've never seen a person bathe in Purell.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've seen that.
By comparison, Huey is washing himself in an absolutely filthy sink.
This is the second time this guy has washed brains off of himself.
You're right. But the first time he had a power hose. Now he just has a trickle of water. Yeah.
Oh.
MM says, "Huey, so glad you got us into this." Huey says, "She had a husband, right? A kid?" Frenchie says, "2 kids." Huey says, "And I got her killed." MM says, "You didn't get her killed. That wasn't meant for us." Huey asks him how he knows. MM says, "Because our brains aren't all over the dash, that's how. Someone was watching her. And the minute she said something she wasn't supposed to, he takes his hands and imitates an explosion." Huey asks, "Somebody from Vought?" MM shrugs. Huey says, "So we're saying that Vought may have just assassinated the deputy director of the CIA."
Could be.
Maybe.
Maybe.
MM leans forward and says, "And now we're in the middle of that too. Happy now, mother."
Easy, Marvin.
MM walks over to his Vermont country dollhouse. Huey reaches the call. It's Starlight. He tells her she shouldn't be calling. She says it's a burner phone. It should be fine. He still maintains that someone could be listening. She's excited. She tells him they did it. Gecko is getting her the Compound V in a day or two. She asks Huey what he's thinking. New York Times? She says, "I was thinking CNN or MSNBC, but..." He interrupts her, telling her to hold on a second. She says, "Come on. This is what we've been waiting for. Let's burn those down." He says, "Just take a beat. Let's figure out the best way to do this." She asks why. What happened? He says nothing. Vought's just dangerous, that's all. I mean, you got to be careful. I don't want you getting hurt. She says, "I'm not going to get..." And then she says, "If something happened, you know you can trust me. We're in this together." He tells her, "No, I do trust you. It's just, I just want to take our time. You know, do this right. That's all." She says, "I know when you're not telling me the truth, Huey. I kind of lived with it every single day. Don't lie to me. Not again." There's a long pause. Then he says, "I'm not. Swear to God." She slowly nods, then says, "Whatever. I gotta go." She hangs up the phone. She can totally tell he's lying. Do you think he did this to protect her?
I think so. I think it's a big part of it. He did a great job of keeping his composure for a guy that's still covered in somebody's brains. She can, there is obviously something up. It's easy to tell from her side. It's easy for us to see, of course, because the guy's covered in brains, trying to sound normal. But yeah, I think he's trying to protect her.
Okay. Huey slowly puts the phone down. He is scared by a loud noise, accompanied by a body sliding down the stairs into the basement. The boys all watch as Butcher descends into the basement. He says, "All right, easy does it, lads. Easy does it." We can see that the gang members have weapons trained on him. Butcher goes on, "Like I tried to tell this, I'm with that lot. Yeah?" And he points at the boys. Frenchie motions to the gang to lower their weapons. MM says, "What the are you wearing?" Butcher says, "That's a good question. It looks like a running suit from the 80s. It's kind of like got a felt-like quality to it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's bad.
Huey looks at Frenchie and says, "You called him." Frenchie says, "I'm sorry, Petite Huey. It's not a game now. We need a real captain." Butcher says, "Frenchie's right. This is a mess, son. We got a soup terrorist. Raynor's blown her canister, and we're the most wanted in the country. But don't you worry, Daddy's home." Butcher gives Huey a diabolical smile.
I see what you did there. Nice.
I was looking for an excuse to use it.
Yeah. You can't get it. We don't get many chances to say diabolical.
Right. And then Pressure by Billy Joel starts playing again. That is the end of the episode.
What an introduction to season 2, huh?
Yeah.
It's dense.
There was a lot.
There was a lot.
Definitely a lot that happened. Yep. Did you have any particularly impactful scenes?
I like that I've freaked you out with the image of the bag of chips in a man's head.
Yeah.
At the same time, is it interesting? But it is appropriate. It's about, I mean, it's kind of how he opens it, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
It's just kind of like, wow, heads aren't designed to open that way.
No, they're not.
But like I said, but that one in Raynor dying, because I kind of liked Raynor's character.
Yeah, I like her.
And as far as we know, she's one of the few people that they've got in their corner, and now they don't have her.
Right, she's gone.
She's gone. So that's a big blow.
I think for me, that scene with Blind Spot, man.
Oh, that's brutal too, man.
Terrible.
And he's so hateful.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah, this is the
Mr. Edgar scene.
Oh yeah.
He's just captivating, man. Like,
he is.
As a character.
He is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, who can own Homelander like that?
Dude.
Yeah.
Man, I love him. I so love that we get him in this season and more.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because I don't remember. I remember the general. Are you like me? Do you just kind of remember the gist of the whole? I remember a lot of specific points.
I remember
rewatching, but certain things in smaller points. I don't remember certain things that stand out more on a rewatch.
There are at least 4 to 5 very specific things that I remember. I do kind of remember the overarching plot, but I need to be reminded quite a bit of the goings on of the season. Yeah.
That's exactly. I'm the same way. That's I have a pretty solid understanding of it, but at the same time, there's a lot of intricate stuff that goes on in this show.
Okay. Yeah.
But cool, great episode, great job.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we drop off?
No, good show, man. As always, just enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. Good job today. We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.